Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am Aurora. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Today is level 2 lesson. Is it 17? Hold on. Let me make sure I'm saying the right thing. Lesson 16. Sorry, apologies about that. Level 2, lesson 16. And this is all about the topic of sexuality, both human sexuality, both healthy and unhealthy. But before we get into that material, and I'll begin housekeeping by just being able to communicate. This topic in particular, I think, is something where if you are a parent, you might want to watch this video first before sharing it with your children. I don't think that I should be the person introducing these topics to young people. And I think that it would be really important to have parental guidance in watching this video and anything that I say. And also, we're not going to talk that much about sexual violence. So there's no real trigger warning on that, but we will be talking about sexuality and mentioning anatomical body parts. And if that's something that does not seem like what you would like to be listening to or exposing your family members to, then please don't watch. Otherwise, hello and welcome. And now let's do housekeeping on really, really fun stuff. Just got back from Sedona, literally this past weekend. Took a little bit of time to be able to recalibrate myself and get all of my equipment set back up and reorganized because it was a lot, because I brought all of my musical equipment and my synthesizer and microphone and had an amazing time. So let me tell you all about that because that is super positive. So I had a wonderful group of dancers. My complete, profound respect and love to everybody who danced with me. It was absolutely amazing. They were ready for the endurance activity. And we did have a big day-long dance on Tuesday. And I have to just give so much praise to the dancers because everybody motored through or continued to go, even if they were feeling tired, even if they were feeling hungry. Even one person had, I think, a little bit of a case of poison ivy and was not feeling that much like they wanted to be moving around, but they did it. And also, so huge success on the levels of our daily waking consciousness, ego interactions, emotional interactions, and how we grew as a group of people and got to know one another and that level of sharing. Also, huge positive impact in the fabric of space-time, which is why we really gathered to be able to do this work together as a group. So I always watch to see what unfolds next and what is, new in coming back from Sedona. Like the first time, I definitely felt big changes, and the second time, I felt big changes too. And I'm turning to my very, very faithful notebook pad over here so I can point to these things because, I'm very cautious about talking about these things. And it's always a conversation that we're having, kind of like we have an occupied force, like we have something that has invaded us. And we're talking about the thing that has invaded, but we still have our minds. So I've always considered that to be very positive and miraculous, that even with these intrusions into our biology and possibly into your cognition and perception, that we are still able to have these conversations. And as soon as I started to check back in with social media, I found a really beautiful ongoing conversation of some new research, peer-reviewed materials that, even though they're peer-reviewed, I cannot mention them here on this platform because I might be deplatformed, but it has to do with incubating the science juice that has been placed subcutaneously into many people and seeing the extraordinary architectures that developed over time. So it was a very, very interesting study that was done over the course of a year and really just confirms a lot of things that many of us already know about and we're already speaking about. So you will be heartened by this. You will also have more confirmation and validation of your voice. And I don't know if it will convince other people because some people are like, well, maybe that science juice was infected, on the shelf or on the way to the laboratory or someplace, maybe that stuff wasn't put in there on purpose. Maybe it just accidentally fell in there. Many, many, many convoluted systems of nonsense that people use to protect themselves from recognizing the truth. That is not acceptable to me at all. But I did, so feeling heartened by a greater level of conversation opening up from there. The study was released in the end of July, but it really only became popularized and known about within the past couple of days. And so that was definitely something big. and then also a few other videos that were on the same topic. And when that happens, so when you lasagna and you look to see what is new, sometimes you might find an email, like come out of your lasagna, reintegrate with the world, and you might find an article, a link, or an email that was from something from weeks ago, but you're only receiving it now. That is lasagna. That has lasagnaed into your reality, or you have now connected with it, even though it's information that was, according to the calendar, available on a larger level. What matters is when you began to access it and became aware of it. So all of that, I think, is hugely important. And again, it can be challenging to even have these conversations due to suppression of certain vocabulary words and voices and concepts, but we are having them anyway. And okay, so part of the energetic web report, but it still continues to unfold. And also, you guys know me at this point that pretty much for the past 4 years, I battle all the time. Like even while I'm in class here and I'm verbalizing and talking and sharing with you, I'm always doing energy work that is not only protecting my own body, but protecting this whole entire planet. And I really don't get a break. And yes, I do it while I'm sleeping as well. But I did have a couple of moments, couple of windows within the past day or so in returning from Sedona where I was feeling like I didn't have to battle that much. And I actually got new insights and I got to use my inner eye for more than scrubbing the cosmic toilet. It was great. And actually what I did was I went back into my cards. They're called Aurora's Message to Humanity. So I made like decks of cards. And I've had them available for a long time, but I hadn't gotten a deck for myself, but I had ordered some extras for the retreat, and I was looking through it, telling you guys they're very affordable, and if you don't have them, that they're really worth getting because it's very much analogous to like Tesla's notebooks or Da Vinci's notebooks. That these are from my earliest sketch notebooks coming here as Aurora, when I was not really very verbal and articulate about my insights and my conceptions, but I did it all through these little drawings, and I curated those drawings, and I chose the playing card format because it's just the cheapest way for me to be able to share 110 images with you. You know what I mean? Like if it was $1 a card, then it would be $110, and that's a lot. But instead, it's just like a very affordable way for me to be able to share all of these reproductions. And so I was looking through them, and they're not oracle cards. They're just cards that have all of these different images that are made out of pure insight. And so I was going back into that mind space of where I was when I was creating those images, over 20 years ago. And it's like there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of good ideas that are still I haven't fully delved into all of them. Like I could paint a painting about every single one of those cards. So I started to get my notebooks together. I started to get my drawing materials together. It's exciting to me because I've been mostly just retreading or doing things that are already familiar with me over the past several years because I've been fighting so much. I really haven't had new insights coming to me. And the insights are pure abstraction about the way that these shapes fit together, but they do have allegorical meaning, of course. But the key points of what I'm learning are abstractions that then percolate through into physical reality. So new insights are coming in and percolation will happen. And I'm busy drawing, which is definitely a positive, good thing. And so those are like, I hope that I'm getting this across with many, many words. We have achieved greater levels of freedom. The circumstances continue to unfold, but I have generally positive reports that as a result of what we did in our most recent dance, a lot more self-empowerment in people being able to talk about the things that are here to take away your free will and actually have clarity and be able to behaviorally do something about them. And then also for me, much more of a return to my true inner state, which is to be a visionary artist and then share these ideas with the world and to change the world in that way, and much less of a cosmic cleaning lady, even though you guys know I love you and I'm very happy to clean out your bodies and to clean out this world, but it is laborious and my mind can do a lot better stuff. So I'm happy to report that. And let's kind of see, let's go forward and see how things go. I will also tell you that my dance this past Tuesday in my Tuesday morning dance group was super duper intense. Like, oh my goodness, at the retreat, we had really beautiful smooth sailing. We did have a lot of fake planes in the sky and other things like that. Fly the unfriendly skies is what I kept thinking. And I had to do tons of shielding, lots of Merkabahs. But we made it through that really very extraordinarily well. And Cheeky was fantastic too. Just endlessly cute, positive, and helping on every dance session and healing session that I did. So really, really good and positive. Yesterday's Flying Rainbow Lasagna group was, I would say, perilous. Like I told everyone at the end of that was like going through a tsunami, very rough waves, and filled with sharks. Lots of dangerous stuff, but everybody stayed cool under pressure and was very, very good. And I have nothing but praise for everyone. And thank you for trusting me to guide you through such difficult time situations. But oh my goodness, so very difficult dance yesterday, if anybody catches that archive. And I think that all of that was relating to the events of today, which is the anniversary of 9/11/01. Which is, I hope, again, another very difficult topic that I do not want to be deplatformed for talking about this. But that event 23 years ago was a big, giant dark magic spell. It was beyond a physical event. It was a metaphysical event that created reverberations all the way through the fabric of time space. It was a form of mass hypnosis. It was a form of dark magic. It was a form of trauma-based mind control that really our whole world was subjected to. It actually happened 1 month before I came into this world as Aurora, and my own walking in experience happened in the reverberations of that giant time event and through the fabric, the rip in the fabric of space-time that time event caused. So it very much relates to my own personal experiences of creating Flying Rainbow Lasagna and coming here as a walk-in. It's big stuff. And also, I will tell you, as a little bit of Ask Me Anything, I'll do more Ask Me Anythings of sharing about my life, because whenever I talk with people at the retreats, I always have new stories and things. And some of them are proper for public videos, and some of them are not proper for public videos. So you'll have to find me in reality, and then we'll talk over a cup of tea or something like that. But so some of these concepts of, when I first came here, I didn't really know a lot about Earth culture. And I felt like I had come someplace where everybody was totally insane. Because like in my neighborhood, everybody in early October of 2001, everybody had like these tiny American flags on their cars. They were all driving around with lots and lots of American flags. People had been, again, recently traumatized and hypnotized. People were totally disconnected from reality. And I never even remember the time of freedom fries, because there was some international intrigue between the nation states of the United States and France. They did not appreciate each other's viewpoints. And who really suffered was the potato-based side dishes. That's who really suffered in that. I'm being silly and facetious because we need to laugh about this. But yes, freedom fries. And I literally thought I was the only sane person in the world, because I was like, wow, none of these people know what really happened. I'm the only person who can see what really happened. And at that point, I got most of my interactivity and viewpoint about the world from looking at television, even though now I don't watch very much television at all. Hold on, just got to drink a little bit of water here. It wasn't until I saw this show called The Daily Show with Jon Stewart on Comedy Central that I was like, I'm not the only sane person. There's other sane people too. But I also have to couch this or contextualize this, because if you've watched The Daily Show, like now, 20 years later, it's 100% propaganda. But it used to be really wonderful. Jon Stewart used to be the voice of reason of one's generation, saying the things that other people weren't allowed to say on the regular news, calling into question a lot of things that were deservedly worthy of questioning, and questioning the official narrative and propaganda and other things like that. And it was a completely different show. So much like Saturday Night Live or many of these other comedy shows, at one point, they are like the court jester telling the truth. At another point, they are the conformists who speak propaganda for the regime and for the administration. But back then, I found it to be a positive voice of sanity. And so I was like, oh, good. There are some other people that know what's going on here too. So yeah, as soon as I came in, I knew that 9/11 was a dark magic spell. And, even though it's 23 years later, I think that some of the people that are responsible for perpetrating this, I think they're still in existence. Like some of them still have embodiment I'm talking about like higher level bureaucrats in the United States government and the military, and really intelligence agencies of various different nation states that were collaborating on creating this sham event. I think that this is like difficult. This video will be like a difficult video because I'm talking about, that very fraught topic. And then I'm going to talk about sexuality, which is also another just very difficult topic. So difficult that some semesters I have just kind of like glossed over this particular lesson because it's a little challenging to be able to find ways to talk about these things with maturity and with a non-judgmental attitude, because I will have to talk about some things that are, again, a quagmire. So, of course, anybody who has anything to say about the events of 23 years ago, of course, I would like for you to be able to have a way to express yourself and say those things. But I just don't know. I don't know how much we can poke the hornet's nest, or how many hornets can be poked in this. Okay, so wait, let's just say Aurelia says, was so glad to hear about it in lasagna dance class recording yesterday. Glad that things are going well. Cosmic weather over here has been tough. I get it, girl. Keep going. Protect yourself, please. It was a massive relief to hear something good. Yeah. So just so that you guys all know, it's not just you. It's a very, very difficult time. And every time this anniversary comes up, because but it doesn't mean that it keeps on going, because you can diminish the spell. But every time the spell comes up, it's like, let's re-traumatize the population. Let's get more loose. Let's see if we can try to control people's behavior even more from this. And I'm like, no, this is an opportunity actually to clean things out. Every time this yearly tradition comes around, it's an opportunity to actually make things a lot better. And Joyce says, I'm shuffling a deck right now and I love them and recommend. Good. I'm so pleased that you have those cards. They're really, really special to me. And again, I use them in order to tune into my own stuff. So they're kind of like a wonderful way of being able to receive just a different level of insight. And the imagery is very intentional. I chose the best of my little sketches and images that it's deep stuff. It's all deep stuff. None of it is random, even though sometimes they just like a pencil squiggle, but their pencil squiggles actually mean something. Yes. So, okay. So I feel like we're already off to a bumpy start talking about all these difficult things, but I want to be able to give you like some encouragement in this difficult anniversary, that it's not just about remembering something bad that happened. I think that it's, again, the topical theme is, even though you've got invasions and things inside of you that aren't good and that are supposed to be taking over your mind completely, most of you still have your marbles. Most of you are still able to speak and share and connect with each other effectively. And also, the stuff that went on 23 years ago was, again, supposed to take away all of your marbles. That's supposed to make you easily pliable, malleable, which is what trauma-based mind control does. And instead, what you have are just a lot of, I call it troublemaker supremo, huge inconveniences to the control structure, people who continue to ask the right questions, speak the truth with others, and also you must remain as oral historians containing the truth of what you saw or what you know to be truthful. Please stay strong in that, because I did a simple internet search today that showed me the complete opposite of the information that I knew to be truthful. Had to do with who gave the stand down orders for particular fixed wing aircraft to be in the sky on a particular day doing a particular thing. Somebody gave the stand down orders, but it's not the way that it's described if you do a Google search at all. I can't even really talk about this stuff effectively, but find my Facebook page. And yeah, please find my Facebook page, guys, because I actually write about all of this stuff on there. And I have found that I've got actually some good traction at being able to share videos and say things without diminishment. Much more so than on this present video-based platform. So yes, and Joyce is saying the predator class is going down. Predator class is going way down and is totally disempowered. And these are predators of multiple generations, the apex of multiple generations of predatory behavior. And I think they never thought that they could lose. I think they got sloppy or maybe a little bit comfortable in what they were doing, and they never thought that they could be that you could fight against them effectively. And here you are fighting against them effectively. So good job. Keep on being big, giant troublemakers. Okay. So, and also I checked in with some people today while I went on my little walk with Cheeky around town, asking some of my friends who are very like conscious people how they feel today. And they were beautiful in what they said. They were like, oh, yes, I'm well aware of the events of today and of, the anniversaries and everything like that. My friend was just like, it's just another day of them trying to kill you. It's with MOSSAD. That's who he was referring to. I'm like, yeah, just another day of these, intel agencies and lettered agencies trying to kill you. It's a funny, whatever, lighthearted attitude to be able to face the world with. Okay, so it all feels like very downer. Like, let's get uplifted. Let's talk about sex. You can sing that salt and pepper song if you wanted to. Sorbet, gelato, mental clearing, drink some iced coffee here. Okay, so that was one quagmire, one verbal quagmire that I just had to wade through. Now here's another verbal quagmire, because what I want to do is talk about sexuality. And right now I have the chat hidden by my own notes. So apologies if you write something and if I can't see you there. I will have to contextualize what I'm saying right now as referring to human, heterosexual, and reproductive sexuality. Sexuality, as I perceive it from the energetic realm of reproduction and progeny and creating the next generation, which might seem like so old-fashioned and innocent. Oh my goodness. But yes, that is how I view this, although I recognize that there's an entirely different conversation that can go on in the world right now about sexual identity, about gender and gender identity, about how gender identity relates to sexual identity, and about politics of sexual identity, whom is chosen as a partner. And this is not for procreation, but simply for expression of intimacy and sensual pleasures. That's a different category. So although I recognize that in the world right now, people use sexuality or explore their bodies, use their body as an instrument to do all sorts of different things, that is not what I'm really talking about. And I'm talking about sex as it relates to the world of pure energy, to the chakras of your body, to time, and to DNA, and specifically to what is the creation of life, what is the carrying of information across vast distances of time from deep antiquity to the future. That is what DNA does, and sexuality is really the motivation or the generator that propels that information through various generations. So you all can comprehend and know that there are many different sexual activities that do not lead to procreation. And so that is more, again, the exploration of sexuality, sensuality, and intimacy, or bonding and building relationships, but that does not have to do with DNA transfer. So please separate those activities out from what I am going to be able to talk about today. And also, because it's such a quagmire of a topic that involves so many people's sense of identity, sense of self-description, and real vulnerabilities, I, in other times, have shared this class, which is why sometimes then I'm like, I can't even do this sharing because it's so hard. And some people who are homosexual have had qualms about what I shared. And one of them even said that they felt that they wouldn't want to live anymore if they weren't allowed to have orgasm or have a same-sex partner, any of those things. And none of that is what I'm trying to say. So I do not want to drive anyone to self-destruction or trying to escape this world in any way. Please, no, I'm actually much more inclusive in what I would like to teach and share and embody in our world. So I'm not trying to create severe boundaries in your society and to say that society may only be inhabited by people who are heterosexual and expressing their sexuality for procreation. I am not saying that, but I am saying that that is what I'm aware of, and that is what I would like to teach about, and that is what I have the greatest level of insight to teach about. So yes, I'm not only not saying that you cannot be homosexual, I am saying you can be homosexual. You can be homosexual. You can also be menopausal. What if you're no longer fertile? Are you still allowed to have sex or encouraged to have sex? Even if you're menopausal and you're not fertile anymore? Yes. So because I have this information is broken up into two different levels, one of which is about healthy sexuality and one is which is written about unhealthy sexuality, okay? And in the unhealthy sexuality, I call out a lot of the things that are the most difficult things. Now, I will, trigger warning, I will talk about things that are about like ritual abuse and the distortions of being attracted to inappropriate non-fertile partners in the world. And those are all dysfunctions that are not the way it's supposed to be. And those are the direct result of genetic modifications that have happened to the human body. So you guys right now are living in a world where people's bodies have been changed. Your levels of sexuality have been changed, and your motivations for what you're doing with sexuality has all been changed. And I would just like to be able to start out with giving you like the most clear and pure insight into what you're supposed to be doing, but without you internalizing through many filters of like religious hatred and judgment, a sense of like, being either ostracized or imperiled or whatever is the word when you are damned to eternal torment by doing the wrong thing with your body. No, but you know what is wrong is violating someone else's boundaries. So what you're doing in consensual partnership and with your own body is way, way, way different than anything that is done in terms of violating another person's boundaries and sexual violence. And that also relates to things that are done non-physically. That would be verbally and through people's gaze, like the looking at, not the homosexuals. It's called the male gaze, especially in artwork, how artwork mostly has been made by males in a viewpoint of the female body, and it is called exploring the male gaze in artwork and how males look at and objectify female bodies. And this is also a part of what needs to be cleaned up, healed, and just completely recalibrated in your world, because this is really why burqas exist. Why do some very suppressive cultures that diminish women's free will and diminish women's voices, why do they require a diminishment of the visibility of the female form? And it's because of the dysfunction of the male viewpoint looking at women's bodies. It is really necessary to heal the male viewpoint and not to make women have to walk around protecting themselves from the accidental arousal of someone else in the world. And there's a big conversation to be had about all of that. And I'm here to have it because, so of course, I'm a woman. I am here in female body. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's start with this. Me as Aurora, where I come from in a larger cosmic sense, is beyond gender and beyond being a man or a woman. So I used to have that written on my website and said, yes, I'm a galactic walk-in and I come from a place that is beyond gender. And then that was like 20 years ago or a very long time ago when I wrote those words and put them up on my initial website. And then as the cultural moment has changed and transgenderism has become a huge issue at the forefront of many people's lives, viewpoints, and social agenda, people would misinterpret that. I had to take it down off of my website because they thought that I was saying that I did not have a gender or that I was gender non-conforming in this world. And that's actually not truthful. And also people look at my body and they're like, well, Aurora has muscles and she is gender non-conforming. Is Aurora saying that Aurora is a man? No, I'm a woman and I have a female reproductive system and female monthly cycle and have lived as a woman here in this world for over 20 years and definitely identify in this world as a woman, and actually would find it hurtful if people did not think that I was a female, because I definitely go to great lengths in order to express myself as a female. But also, I'll tell you this, all right? Coming here in a female body and having the experience of what it is to be a woman in this time, I have been disempowered and condescended to many, many times. That I've always come here as a cosmic encyclopedia. Even though I wasn't always as articulate as I am now, I always had an enormous amount of information to share. And because I was in this body container, that I'm a woman, having long, blonde hair also didn't always help because people looked down on me. And I was shocked that was a big thing when I was like, oh, like, this guy's not listening to me because I'm a woman. And that was like, because of course that is not what it's like in the time place that I come from in Atlantis, where of course we have a completely different definition of what your identity is. And don't even ask me to describe what sex, procreation, and gender politics are like in Atlantis. I cannot translate. All right, don't even make me try. But the same thing when I am in at my collective as Aurora. It's not about who you lived as, what was your body shape form, or whether you were a male or a female. What matters is like, can you play music? Like, are you a good artist? What is your soul like? So yes, I just want you guys to know, like, your soul is actually beyond what your gender is here in your body, but your body container and your biology here absolutely affects your social presence and your life path a lot. So although I am an abstraction when I'm not here I'm in a female body. And I learned all the lessons of what it's like to like walk around being a woman. And so have a great deal of solidarity with other women and how you may, and what your experience might have been like in reality as well. But I also will say some things, I think, in today's class that will be challenging for males to hear. And I don't want males to feel bad or diminished about themselves, because I'm going to say, like, guys, been genetically modified a lot. And that a lot of what's happened has been a disconnection of what would be your beautiful, natural, healthy levels of sexual arousal to be in generalities here, but not specifics of you guys in my class. Many males are disconnected emotionally from the things that make them aroused. And this is really the problem that we're having in society. So this goes into the part 2, sexual dysfunction. When the bodies are not genetically modified, then you are only aroused in the presence of appropriate, fertile female potential partners. So that means you would never be aroused by like inanimate objects, but you know that there's all these weird fetishes, or people are aroused by the view of what something looks like, or interaction with something that is a not alive object that you're never going to make a baby with. It could be like a sock puppet or some other ridiculous object. People here are very, very screwed up, and that is not what you're supposed to actually be feeling. What you're supposed to actually be feeling is a natural attraction and desire for your ideal mate that you can make the next generation with. And you cannot make the next generation with a sock puppet or an inanimate object. So this is a hijacking of your natural primal feelings of sexuality. And what I would like for in this conversation, like as I'm like dancing around, like feeling all of these like, it's just very difficult to talk about these things, because what I'm most concerned about is that I'm going to be invalidated with people being like, Aurora, like you're an extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional visitor, you're an otherworldly visitor, and you're coming here and making an assessment of our sexual dynamics, and who are you to talk about these things? And you don't even really have relationships. How can you have these opinions? And I'm like, guys, like, no, I'm an otherworldly dimensional person, and I have a lot of unusual ideas, but I'm telling you, sometimes like you're not even doing it in the right hole. All right, I should be a little funny about that, but it's true. Sometimes there's stuff that's going on that's like, that is never going to make a baby. This is not even going in the right hole. So to be less comedic in my sharings, the vagina and the penis and the vulva, these are all sexual reproductive organs. The anus is not a reproductive organ. It's an excretory organ. I don't care what you're trying to do. You will not make a baby with the anus. That is it. And I'm trying to be like lighthearted about this, but I also feel like maybe this lecture needs to happen because I've come into this world where like apparently maybe some people don't know about that, or it's just not relevant information. They're going to try to perform baby making activities in the wrong orifice. Okay. Hopefully you can get with humor where I'm coming from my perspective. But I'm like, these people don't know what they're doing with their bodies, not even doing it in the right hole. But there's a long history doing it in the wrong hole. And it has much, much less to do with reproduction and the expression of partnership and caring, and much more about power dynamics and domination. So when that happens in the animal world, and this is really humans expressing themselves through animalistic body language, what is happening is one person is dominating another person. And sometimes this is done in consensual partnership. Sometimes this is done not in consensual partnership. And when that happens, it is often devastating. And if I go into, let's just start with the darkest stuff. When non-consensual violation of the anus happens, that is a dark magic ritual. That is a taking of a person's soul, a capturing, a victimization, a disempowerment, and has things to do with a lot of the energy centers on the body. It has to do with creating negative and inverted flows of the orgasmic energy through the body, and also strings of connection between the perpetrator, who is the violator, and the person who's being violated. So in healthy sexuality, what you have are strings of energy that come together in the genitals and actually create conception. I'm not going to draw pictures. I have actually done it many, many times in class. I always draw my funny stick figures that are like caveman stick figures, and they're highly exaggerated. But let me just gesture with my hands. When you have the male penis and the female vagina, I know I have to use these words in this time and place, and they are coming together for procreative sex, energy comes out of the penis before the sperm comes out of the penis. And energy comes out of the vagina and literally draws the penis and guides it inward and creates pathways that guide the genetic materials together so that you can actually have a baby. The likelihood of having a baby and having a positive, viable birth and conception from this event is minuscule. Like it's as unlikely as if you just put the parts of a clock into like a giant pillowcase and shook it all up together and then expected to dump it out and have it perfectly put together like Swiss watch or alarm clock or something like that. Like that's not going to happen. The likelihood is completely minuscule. So you have to recognize that's what objective materialist science would say, that these things randomly come together and sometimes kapow, get a baby. But I'm like, no, not just merely kapow. You have a lot of things going on. So the things that are going on in terms of actually creating successful progeny have to do with every single chakra of the body, including your Christ chakra here and your partner's Christ chakra coming together to mentally conceive of the baby that you are then going to give birth to. And this is something that is not practiced that much in Western industrialized culture, but some indigenous cultures still have this. It's called a conscious birth, where you might actually meet or interact with the disembodied soul presence of your child before you conceive of them. You might meet them in a dream or have like a conversation with them or whatever it is, and then feel like when you are actually in the act of intercourse and making love with your partner, you're envisioning the welcoming in and the doorway for that soul. And so is your partner. And you might both be focusing on the characteristics and traits that you would want in a child. Like, if you're a woman, you might be in the process of making love with your partner. And you might think about like, what it would be like to sew a dress for your little girl or teach her to make bread or something like that. And if you're a dad or want to be a dad and you're making love, then you might be thinking about, whatever lessons you would impart as a father. Maybe you would think about like protecting your child or teaching them some aspect of like hunting with arrows or throwing baseballs or whatever it is. I know that these are like very traditional things that I'm talking about in terms of being a man and a woman, because women can do archery and men can make dresses, but just doing traditional things. All right. So traditionally, you would think about these things when you are in the moment of being together with your partner. And because what you're thinking about when you make love is absolutely what you will receive. Like not an exact copy, but it's similar to sun gazing. When you're sun gazing, you are not in a partnered relationship, although the sun is your partner, but the sun is really an aspect of your own higher consciousness. But you are in a rapport that is a co-creative activity. And when you're making love with your partner, you're supposed to be in a co-creative activity where, in ideal language, both of you are envisioning the experience of parenthood and the characteristics of your offspring and that contributes to the likelihood of conception. And then the other thing that I was talking about are actual energetic strings that emerge from both male and female reproductive organs and intertwine those two partners. And it doesn't stop after the moment of lovemaking. So however long that moment of lovemaking happens, you guys are going to be bonded together at the level of the pelvis. Ideally, all of this happens consensually, right? And it should be something that a person chooses in empowerment. I recognize very much and must articulate, because I'm mixing up ideal stuff versus non-ideal stuff in this lecture. My notes are much more organized and discreet, but you recognize that not everything is perfect. Not every relationship is consensual, and not every conception happens out of consensual sex. So that is also a very, very big thing to recognize here. But ideally, people are able to choose their partners, and ideally, the female's job is to be the gatekeeper of the womb, which is a sacred chalice. And you could call it a stargate or a portal or an opening for consciousness to enter into this realm. And it is not by accident that females have that body part and that females must be responsible for the entry of consciousness into this world. Again, no offense to males who are wonderful, and I don't want you to feel diminished in my lecture here. People have their own different gifts and talents and what they are here to share in the world. But females have this unique ability to be able to bring life into the world. And females, I'm going to say a lot of radical things. Okay, I'm just going to stop mincing on eggshells here. All right, like if I was in charge of the world, I'd be like this. Women should actually control all of the resources. Men are already like, that's it. I'm out of this lecture. I don't like what you're saying. Wait, I haven't even told you how your penis is wrong. But wait, okay, I know. Thank you. Aurora's Comedy Hour. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I would make sure that women had access to all of the resources. Do you know why? Because women are bringing life into the world. Women are creating the babies, and they not only need extra calories for their bodies to be able to sustain their pregnancy during 9 months, they also need safe places to be able to house their children after they give birth to those children, an adequate supply of food, not only for themselves, but also for their children over the next several years. And also, women's bodies take time to recover after giving physical birth. I've never given physical birth, but I have many, many female friends who have. And it's clear that postpartum, like after they have the baby, it takes time for them to be able to achieve their athletics again, and to be able to, like if you were in a primal society, to be able to farm and hunt and gather and do all of these physical activities. It might take a couple of months to be able to get back to those activities and lifting heavy objects and doing all these different things. And breastfeeding also takes a lot of caloric energy, a lot of emotional energy. Moms are often chronically tired because they are up every 2 hours breastfeeding their, tiny newborn infants. And that basically, if you want to have the next generation, if you don't want it to die off as a species, what you should do is structure your society so that it helps moms. It helps moms. But in this world, people are like, no, we don't want to help moms. If you make it too easy to have babies, then everybody's going to have babies, and you're going to have too many babies. You're going to be overpopulated, and you will have all of these babies and not enough food, and everything will be bad. Like, this is really how some people think. And some people also think like, yes, you have prenatal care and you care for babies and everything. People have 12 children. They're big bunnies, they're humping like bunnies, and they're going to have so many babies, and it's going to be too many babies. Like, none of that is truthful. All right. Let me just really clue you in on this. Women in empowered and abundant situations do not hump like rabbits and do not have 12 babies. Women have 12 babies in arranged partnerships in areas of the world where there is minimal education, not only about reading and writing and analytical intelligence, but minimal education about anatomy, about the monthly cycle, and about birth control. And that the suppression of women relates directly to these levels of lack of education or ignorance or lack of empowerment for women to know about their own bodies, and then also, most crucially, be able to advocate for themselves in relationships. So in the very same cultures where women do not have a voice and do not have education about their monthly cycle or access to birth control materials, or even be allowed to say no to their husband, that is when you have an overabundance of babies. And then also in those circumstances, very sadly, sometimes because there are so many babies and so many people that need to be taken care of in this world, that sometimes children are sacrificed or sold into sexual slavery. Like that is happening in Thailand and Cambodia right now, today. That's a very, very sad, incredibly distressing topic. The idea that some people might be having babies that they're not in control of their fertility. They're having babies that they do not have the ability to support and pay for effectively, and that they either give away or sell away access to their children or sexual slavery, essentially. All of that is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly screwed up. And all of that gets fixed and solved when you put females in charge of the economy. And then they're like, yeah, we are going to make sure that we have enough money for ourselves. And we're going to make sure that we have the right number of babies. And we're also going to be able to say no or no thank you to either husbands or partners that might want to make more babies. Be like, no, I don't want to make more babies, or I don't want to make more babies right now, or I don't want to make more babies with you. Get out. Think about that. Many women in this world do not have the capacity to say that. I don't want to make more babies with you or not with you right now. Get out. Because why? Because men in this culture are the ones who have the money. This huge out of balance thing that's going on. All right. I'm rocking a lot of boats because people have sometimes asked me, like, what do you think about abortion? And is this right? And is this wrong? And what should be going on? And what are people supposed to do about all these extra babies? And I'm like, you should have them and you should pay for them. There's no way in the world that someone should be like having babies and not be able to pay for their basic care and education. That seems like a social no-brainer, but in this world, you have no brains. There are no brains in this world. So I'm going to start to be just insulting towards everyone because you're doing sex like totally wrong. Okay, so now I'll just tell a fun Aurora story. When I first came here as Aurora, this is like the first couple of years that I was here, and I really hadn't had that much exposure to human society at all. And I really didn't know about what people were doing with sex in the privacy of their own homes. I went to this one person's house. Nothing bad happened between us sexually. I just want to relieve any discomfort that you might have, even as beginning to share this anecdote. But yes, no, a person invited me to be able to have a meal with her at her home. And she was like, just, feeding me out of kindness. She's like, let's turn on some TV so that we've got something fun to watch while we eat our meal together. And instead of, in strained silence or something like that, I'm eating my dinner, and she put on Sex in the City. And I'd never seen the show before. And at first I thought like, oh, this must be a farce. This cannot be serious. I could not even comprehend that people actually behaved in this way. And then I started to find out like this is not a farce. It's not a farce on the level that I thought it was. I thought it was complete fabrication. But no, in case you guys don't know what that show is, it was kind of like, I guess, a late 90s, early 2000s show about several single women living in New York City, kind of having a bon vivant lifestyle where they had a lot of different partners. And what they would do is first, like, let's say that this is the man and this is the woman, and that, your chakras go all the way up your body. So what they would do is first, before they even really knew each other, they would just touch their genitals together and see whether it was worth it to explore other levels of connection, such as the emotion, the intellectual, the heart, authenticity, and all the way up to Christhood and divine connection. It's completely the opposite. All right. So if you envision this, as the rainbow from the top down, again, I could draw this with all my pictures, but what you're supposed to do is first find someone that you have a divine connection with. And just by doing that, you're already like taking out whatever 99% of the population, because a lot of people you're just not going to have that level of divine connection with. Then you're going to connect in Christhood. None of this has to do with the church and cultural doctrines. But I'm talking about connecting on the level of pure insight and being telepathic with your partner. All right. Then you're going to connect on the level of here, that is your authenticity. Because I also learned that like people are lying to each other in relationships. They're lying about the very basics of like whether something feels good or gives them pleasure, and whether they have an orgasm or satisfaction in the sexual activity that they're doing. They are lying to each other, even with their bodies. And I had to learn that that's a big thing. I learned that from, I think, watching a Seinfeld episode. And also people not being able to say their real feelings beyond whether they're having, not being able to advocate for themselves about what they do and don't like, or how they do and don't like to be touched. but they can't say I love you. That was a Seinfeld episode where he's like, I love you in that sweater. I love you in that color. And I realized, like, wow, that was in some of the first years that I was here. I just really thought, like, I'm in a place where people cannot even genuinely say that they love each other. That is how diminished their heart connection is. I had to learn all these things because you're supposed to be able to communicate authentically, not fake your orgasms, have a real heart connection. That's just the basics. And then also have an intellectual connection, be able to have an intellectual, conversation. And also, of course, have a connection on the level of your emotions. That's emotion of caring, mammalian emotions, like attractiveness, feeling attracted to your mate. And then if all of those things are in order, then you touch your genitals together and make a baby. They were doing it completely the opposite. Like they were touching each other's bodies together first before they even really knew about each other on any other level and exploring what their bodies felt like. And then if things went well, learning each other's names and then learning about their professions, what are their hopes and dreams in life, and all the other things all the way up, into higher levels of spirituality that might happen days, weeks, months, or years after actually having sex together. And when I saw that show and I started I'm eating and I'm like, a lighthearted farce. And I'm like, maybe this is not a farce. Maybe this is actually what people are doing. Then I was shocked and horrified from my galactic perspective. I was like, no, this is not the right way to do things now, but this is the way that people do things in this world. And that was even being presented as a type of elevated lifestyle of the modern empowered woman, quote unquote. Now, that is not a really good way to act at all. Let me drink more water here. I have to hydrate. It's hard for me to talk about this stuff. I hope you guys are laughing. Why is it not a good thing to do? Why is it not a good thing for a woman to have 10 million different sex partners? Because women, you are the energy bank. Your womb is the connection to the divine, it is the connection to higher consciousness realms. And it is the source of life force energy. It's a really, really special place. And when these strings emerge from the woman's form and from the man's form, and you get there are quantum entanglements that are essentially happening on a genetic level and on an energetic level. When that happens, energy flows from the woman to the man. Even though everybody's be like, no, Aurora, don't you know? Like the man ejaculates into the woman, and the man puts energy into the woman. No. This is not what is happening. On an energetic level, what is happening is men are receiving energy from the woman, okay? And this is why males are highly motivated to find female partners. They're feeling some certain way inside, and they're like, I am not feeling the way I need to feel right now inside. I need to find a woman. And I need to get energy from the woman. So you can comprehend on a biological level that this is a motivation for why males would want to find a female. It's like when you look at the natural world of plants that are being pollinated, plants want to be pollinated. They're like, yep, come pollinate me. I want to make some new seeds for the next generation. There is something biological that motivates the activities of both males and females. And this is said without judgment, it's actually part of the biological world. And it helps to motivate you to keep going and to keep creating future generations. But you have to recognize that the reason why males feel that motivation to find a partner and ejaculate and put the sperm into a woman is because they don't have the source of that energy that they need. So going to give you sperm, but I need to receive energy. That's it. That is the big thing that is happening. In an ideal relationship, there's a positive level of energy exchange. In an ideal relationship, because I know I'm walking on all sorts of social and emotional tightropes here, because you're getting into all sorts of commodity and marriage, or as we like to say, marriage, that blessed event. I know I'm ready to go into all sorts of silly movies and things because I feel so uncomfortable talking about sexuality that my brain is like, talk about this, do it in a funny voice. But Marriage is a commitment in partnership. That is because females are giving a lot of energy to the males, and they're basically saying it's a social contract to be able to say, I will give you this energy. And even when women are pregnant, they are vulnerable. So what is going on is that it is not only the vulnerability of having to give birth and the things that can go wrong in that activity, but also the 9 months leading up to actual delivery of the baby. When women are pregnant, they need to have more hydration and more food and more rest. It's not as easy for them to run around, climb trees, fight people off with battle axes. Like, it's just the truth. All right. And when you're a woman, you even recognize this, like your athleticism throughout the month changes. Like there are some weeks when you're like, yes, I'm ready to lift heavy. And there are some weeks when you're like, no, like I'm ready to like sit on the couch and eat extra calories. And that is normal. And you should celebrate that. So we ought to be like loving what's going on in our bodies. This is very, very different than what it is to be a man. Like if you're a man, you're like pretty much the same every day. You're ready every day, like ready to do stuff, pick up a battle axe, climb a tree, do whatever you need to do. You're not like, this is not the best week for me to have to go swimming or do other things like that. But sometimes women feel that way, and it is 100% hormonal because women have this very, very clear hormonal cycle where, yeah, sometimes you feel like you're super strong and you can take on the world, and sometimes you need to like eat chocolate and do self-care and take a bath and just be relaxed and receptive. And so we have different levels of what our body is doing. You have to celebrate and enjoy the different levels of what your body is doing. That's why it's very difficult for some women who are athletes and at the elite level of being an athlete, because it might be like, yeah, well, maybe you have your period and it's the Olympics day. It's like, too bad. Like you're going to have to run or swim or do whatever you need to do, even though your body is really feeling like today should be a rest day. Don't make me win a gold medal today. But female athletes do it anyway. But also sometimes they're eating so few calories that sometimes they're too lean and sometimes they're not actually getting their cycles. So this is a big stuff. I'm actually happy to see that there's a better conversation that's going on right now in women's sports about properly fueling athletes and also dancers too, properly fueling dancers, making sure that everybody maintains their proper monthly cycle and being able to reduce injury by allowing more rest days on the days when you need it. Because you know what? Your connective tissues act differently when you're exposed to different hormones. Because like when you're preparing for giving birth, your body creates all of these hormones that make your body more elastic. And it's actually not the best time for you to be doing heavy lifting and lift 500 pounds over your head. That's actually the best time to be able to working with flexibility and, stretching your body and the elasticity, because that's what you've got in your hormones. So if you're, the upshot of all this is, if you're a female athlete, then I encourage you on your athletic journey and just listen to your body, properly fuel your body, listen to your natural cycle, and do, if you're pregnant, do what you can comfortably through your pregnancy, knowing that you might need to change your routine or act differently during that time, but you can still be like wonderfully healthy and active all throughout your pregnancy. But that's really, really different than males, who pretty much can do everything that they need to do every day and don't face the vulnerability of carrying life inside of them. Unless you're a seahorse, everybody wants to bring up seahorses. They're like, male seahorses carry the babies. I know. And you know what? They should have like a comfy rest time, and someone should bring them food so that they can carry their babies. All right. But this is why there is this dynamic that's going on, where a woman is essentially saying to a male, if I have sex with you, I might get pregnant and then I might be more vulnerable and need extra calories, extra rest, and not be able to do all the usual things that I would do if I were not pregnant. Are you going to help me? And the social commitment of what it is to be married is a man saying, I will be there for you and I will help you, instead of, I will, like, I'm attracted to you. I want to put energy, I want to put sperm inside of you, get energy from you. All right, you're done. I already put energy and got energy from you, put sperm inside of you. Let me go off and impregnate this person now. Get it? So there have to be social contracts that prevent that from happening, because otherwise you can just have single parenthood, and it's very difficult, not ideal. It's really positive to have both parents available to be able to raise the child. So this is why you have something that's called pair bonding and oxytocin, that this is what happens when you make real love with someone and you look deep into their eyes. There's a bond that is created. And the bond is a commitment beyond the social contract of having a piece of paper that says you must stay with this one woman, and it's inconvenient for you to whatever go off on a sailing voyage or leave forever. It's inconvenient for you to do so legally because there will be repercussions if you just abandon the person that you've been committed to. But also, hopefully, there's a real connection. So to reiterate, there's a quantum connection or a connection at the level of pure energy as DNA is twining together. Then there's the emotional connection, the bonding of oxytocin, biochemistry, and mammalian affection that keeps people together. And then, of course, there are also contracts that people make where they say, we're going to be together. And those are important things because otherwise females might be hugely disadvantaged in the world and exploited. Because if you're a man, your goal is to have sex with as many women as you possibly can. And if you're a woman, your goal is to have sex with as few males as you possibly can. That's the truth energetically of this world. I know. But I just said something that might go against the modern proposals of what is called postmodernist feminism and how many people look at what sexual freedom is. So in the 1960s, there was something called the sexual revolution that I think was not favorable to women. It did not really help women going forward or empower them, but it was presented as a level of empowerment, wherein the previous generation's cultural morals and heavy judgments were released. But so it meant that there was free love, quote unquote, but free love greatly favored the males who are now like free without social constraint or judgment from social and religious paradigms to have as many partners as they want and to go from partner to partner and to not have marriages or commitments and to make many multiple babies. But the females were hugely disadvantaged in that energy was taken from them in these exchanges. They did not get energy back. And then more partners came and took more energy from them, and they did not get energy from it. So if you're a if you're a female, you've had 100 partners, it means you have 100 strings attached to your womb. And your womb is like your bank account. And those 100 guys, they didn't just get energy when they were with you in that moment of lovemaking. They continue to receive energy from you for many, many years afterwards on a quantum and esoteric level. So their penis is not still connected to you, but their energy is still connected to you. And this is deep stuff. And I think it takes roughly 7 years or so for those energy strings to become dormant or non-viable or simply not active anymore. And that's if you just had sex with someone once. Sometimes when women are noticing that, those energy trails are kind of dying off, they might go back to that partner or find more partners because they've almost habituated to the sense of being constantly drained in their energy field. And when they start to get energy, it might be such a novel idea that they're like feeling like they want to go out and find more partners so that they feel drained again, because feeling drained might just be normal in this world, which is that is why I was truly shocked from the Sex in the City show, not because of moralism. I did not clutch my pearls because I was like, oh, these ladies are exploring their vaginas in a wild context. No, I was shocked and horrified because I was like, they are making very bad deals, even though it's not a quid pro quo, but they're being exploited is a better way of saying it. They're being energetically exploited, even while it is being presented as if they're living a positive lifestyle. And I didn't even recognize back then how much TV is social engineering, but please know that is social engineering. The sexual revolution and postmodern feminism and Sex in the City, this is all social engineering that encourages women to make very, very poor energetic investments with your energy. Got a question about abortion? Gird your loins, everyone. Get ready. We're going to dive into abortion, okay? So Lan says, can you speak about your perspective on abortion, more so about the souls coming in and their experience? I can absolutely talk about it. It's going to make people feel really, really uncomfortable. And my solution is not to ban abortion. It is to fund pregnancies. And again, if you fund pregnancies, it does not mean that women are going to have 12 babies. Women are going to have a comfortable number of babies that they can have with their bodies. Like, I don't know what some of these ladies are doing, but having 12 babies is not comfortable. Oh my goodness, no. Having 12 babies is like a very, very big athletic challenge on the body. And there's usually not enough nutrition to be able to support that in the woman. Someone once told me it's an old wives' tale, but you lose a tooth for each child. And that's because the calcium that it requires for a healthy pregnancy, not every woman gets enough calcium in her diet, and often her own body binds her teeth and bones to be able to put that calcium into their children. And you do that once. If you lose one tooth per child, you have 12 children, it means that you have no teeth. And this is actually like a very, very ancient way of treating women. You know, in our world, if we look at the way that some dogs are treated in what is called puppy mills, this is exactly what happens. That puppies are bred for specific, whatever it is, these cultured dogs, like a specific special breed. And in the disreputable puppy farms, the mothers are just treated as objects to make as many puppies as possible. And they make many, many puppies. But what ends up happening is they have all sorts of problems with their bodies, like losing their teeth, having a lot of poor nutrition, having bone loss, and then also all sorts of prolapses, which is basically their reproductive organs getting excessively stretched out from having too many babies. All right. So when you are in charge of your own body and you're a woman, you do not choose to be treated like a puppy farm. You do not choose to be excessively fertile or objectified. You can actually be like, 3 babies is enough. And, whatever, that's enough to take care of. You're really not going to have 12 babies. All right. And so why do women have 12 babies? A lot of the time it is because women are in cultures where they simply cannot advocate for themselves in relationships. And many of those cultures are Orthodox religions. It can be Orthodox Christianity. It can also be Orthodox Islam. It can also be many other traditionalist cultures where it's patriarchal and males get to be in charge, and males say, my penis wants to go inside you now. Let me do it. And women don't get to say no. That's it. And that is a huge out of balance thing that needs to happen. So Sex and the City is not the solution, because women in that show, although they are empowered, they're not really saying the right things. They're not saying, I don't want penises inside of me. They're saying, I want lots of penises inside of me. So it's like, okay, I hope that this is coming across in the right way. In a truly empowered female society, women and young women and fertile women would be able to advocate for themselves, choose who their relationships are, choose who their partners are, say no to partners that they don't want, that they don't find attractive, say no to connections or sexual overtures when they don't feel like they want to have sex. So you might say, get out of my life, I never want to be with you, you're ugly. Or you might say, I think you're attractive, but I don't want to be with you right now. And I don't want to have a baby with you right now. Or they might say, I find you attractive and I'm happy that I had 1 baby with you. I don't want to have more babies with you. That's women in an empowered society. And that is not what we're seeing. So again, there's some societies where marriages are either arranged or created without permission. Like your family does it for you and you just stand there as the bride and be like, yep, this is the guy I'm going to marry. That is not empowerment, and it is not all about personal choice and advocating for yourself. Someone else makes the choice of who you're partnered with. And then also your husband makes the choice about what nights you have sex on, and whether or not you're going to get pregnant is related to his desires. None of that is correct. None of that is the way it's actually supposed to be. Okay. But how does this relate, what I'm saying right now, relate to the concept of abortion? The concept of abortion is the ending of a pregnancy that is either non-desirable, excessive, or not something that a female wants to carry to term. Oftentimes, abortion is the response to other levels of out of balance dynamics and lack of empowerment. Abortion is the after the fact empowerment that women are taking in their bodies to be able to deal with the fact that they had to be married to someone that they didn't want to be married to, or have sex in a marriage that they didn't want to have sex in that moment, or to have sex with someone outside of a marriage that they didn't want to have sex with, or that they wanted to have sex but not actually achieve a baby with because babies are expensive. This is very, very big stuff. And then because the biological and primal imperative of women is to carry pregnancy to term and to love their child. All right. So even the concept of industrialized abortion, making it available as, a generalized, something that is pretty much socially accepted and regulated in the world that you can access pretty easily, is a Band-Aid response that's inadequate to the real problem, which is unintended pregnancies and undesired pregnancies. And really, okay, I've done a lot of session work, and I will not share people's specific stories, but I will share as a generality that when women have vulnerably admitted to me that they've had abortions, there's almost 100% regret. Even though sometimes they might say, I needed to have that in my life. It wasn't a good relationship. I'm happy that I didn't have a baby with that guy and be dragged down by that situation. Or maybe they were trying to leave a relationship. That's a really big one. Got pregnant at the end of a marriage where they were just about to get divorced and didn't want to have to stay with that partner to raise another child for another 18 years and then get divorced in 18 years. So there are a lot of reasons why women have abortions, but it's usually because they did not have the empowerment and verbal capacity in the moment to be able to say no. That's it, just no as a complete sentence. And then had to say that they don't want the baby after the conception of the baby. So I have to say so many things. Having sex is like painting with a paintbrush. In this world, what I have found to be very, very erroneous, that people want to wave their paintbrushes around, but they don't want to end up with a painting. None of that ever made sense to me. There's a distinction in this world between the sensual pleasure of what it is to make love or have sex with someone and the procreative act of actually making a baby. When you have a paintbrush and you put paint on it and you wave it around, you're going to make a painting. The whole point of it is to make a painting. But in this world, people are like, oh, I just want to wave my paintbrush around. I don't want to actually paint a painting. I'm like, I'm an otherworldly visitor. Like, that is the point of why you have a paintbrush, is to make paintings with. Why would you not want to make a painting? So I hope that I'm getting across a total recontextualization and recalibration of what is needed in your whole entire culture of what sex is looked at. Like, it's just like saying people want to eat a food, but not have the caloric intake. They're like, yep, I just want the sensation of chocolate or cheesecake or whatever is my favorite food, but not actually have the calories go inside of me. And I'm like, calories are not a negative, unintended consequence of food. Calories are what food is about. You eat food because you want calories, and your body craves food because you need calories. If you want to have the feelings of fulfillment and satisfaction that come from sexuality, that's appropriate. But it directly leads to creating other new tiny humans that you must be responsible for and that you must take care of. And you can't say that you want one, but not the other. And that's why I am critical in saying that of the community of people who are not heterosexual. Homosexual people, like, please don't feel diminished by what I'm saying here. But there is a genuine critique of wishing to have the sensual and sexual satisfaction of having a paintbrush, but without the end result of creating offspring. And the reason why humans are given sexual feelings is to motivate you to make offspring. It's not just to be able to feel fun feelings. Just like the reason why people are given taste buds and the pleasure of food is to make it so that you will actually eat food, which is actually a very strange thing to do. Like putting weird objects in your mouth and mashing them up with your mouth crystals and then putting them into your belly is like a very, very strange thing to do. But when it tastes like cheesecake, you're like, this is totally natural. This is the most natural thing in the world. It definitely helps you to motivate and get past the oddity of what you're even doing in the act of putting foreign objects inside of you in order to achieve nourishment. With sexuality, the positive orgasmic pleasures and fulfillment happen in order to motivate people to come together in what otherwise would be a very strange and, again, awkward or strange or uncomfortable or bizarre posture. People would not do this unless there was some pleasure involved. So yes, your bodies have been designed with this as a paradigm of pleasure that motivates you towards procreation. And then non-procreative sex, both heterosexual and homosexual, is all about achieving that pleasure, but without actually achieving offspring. And so I am critical of that because I think that there is some disconnect and some lack of responsibility. That really what sexual maturity is in your body is the representation of achieving levels of responsibility, even though you might still be a young adult and not fully an adult. It is essential to say that you begin to become responsive to the needs of your species. When those feelings come up, when people are developing in puberty, what they're starting to feel is that they want to do something that is for the next generation. And they might not even be administratively thinking in those longer term viewpoints, because people who are 16 aren't always thinking like, yeah, I can't wait to make the next generation. But people's primal feelings begin to be focused away from their own needs and towards the needs of the next generation. And that is why people get pregnant sometimes at age 16, because they do not have the administrative ability to think about like, I'm making the next crop of humans, and this is an important thing to do. But their body feels that it is an important thing to do. And that, there was more limited lifespan. It's like, yes, you might need to have a baby at age 16 in order to make sure that you continue to propagate your species. Like that is actually not that strange in terms of the primal biological imperatives that are inside of your body. But you at this point are expected to be more than just your primal instincts or motivations. You also have these complex social and emotional dynamics. So although when I talk about procreating at age 16, I'm talking about in a different world where people had a limited lifespan. But you guys have to also know that a lot of what you have been taught from medical science about how long you can be fertile as a woman is not truthful. That with the correct lifestyle and with the correct spirituality, you can be fertile well into your 50s and 60s and have healthy, viable pregnancies, okay? But medical science does not want you to know about this because they're like, if we have women having babies in their 50s and their 60s, and they're all going to have 12 babies, they're all going to have 15 babies. We can't have this. Tell them to stop having babies by the time they're 40. All right. And then like, so I'm aware of this movie When Harry Met Sally, and the girl's like 39. She's like, I have to have a baby, or that other one with my cousin Vinny. She's like, my biological clock is ticking. I have to have a baby now, because every woman reaches age 39, and there's so much propaganda. You can't have a baby unless you have your baby before you're age 40. And all of that is propaganda, okay? It's not truthful, but it is something that has become a cultural paradigm and a motivator. So there's just a lot. I know I'm talking about a lot of things and haven't even answered the question about abortion. Abortion is a satanic sacrifice. And I am not here in order to heap guilt or judgment upon women who have had abortions or have ended pregnancies, because you already probably feel enough regret. The primal instinct for a woman, especially when you get pregnant, is to love your body and to love your child and to want to have a healthy pregnancy, bring the baby to term, and meet your offspring. That is the primal imperative, what it is to be alive. And when women do abortions, it is pretty much they're going against every maternal instinct and every deeply ingrained biological imperative that has been put inside of you over many, many, many generations. And I mean, sometimes women are living in very non-ideal circumstances where it might be a war and it's very stressful and there's not enough food or whatever. They're nomadic. They have to run from place to place. And still, women really, really, really want to carry their babies to term, want to have a healthy pregnancy, want to see that baby come out. It is, again, a primal motivation and the definition of what it is to be a woman. And I can be very critical of transgenderism as a movement because I think that it looks at the deprivations of what it is to be a woman. Like, I define being a woman by wearing women's clothing, or by having curly hair, or by doing my nails. But really, what it is to be a woman is to be a very, very strong maternal, I want to say badass, very, very committed to protecting your children, being a mama bear, having your baby, protecting your baby, and feeding your baby. That is the definition of what it is to be a woman. Much, much beyond like nail lacquer or something like that. Because what has kept humanity viable as a species has been that drive of mothers to have a safe pregnancy, to give birth, to nurse their children, to bring them up into some level of self-sufficiency, and to make the next generation, and to protect their children through that whole process. And, you know, of course, fatherly protection is another primal instinct here. But right now, I'm just talking about women, because women are mostly in control of whether or not they have abortions. Mostly they are not forced upon them by their male partners, although sometimes they are, and sometimes they're forced upon them by governments. Like this is what happens in China, which is both of those things are very, very unfair circumstances. So if you're a woman that had a forced abortion, of course, there is no blame and no recrimination or anything like that. But what if you chose to have one? I am not saying that you have to blame yourself and feel endlessly bad. I'm saying that you have to contextualize why you did that and why you felt that way. But I'm also telling you, just like I tell you, energy emerges from the, genitals of males and females and ties them together in strings on an energetic level. Here is why abortion is really, really not desirable. It is the death of an organism that could have gone on and lived for 10, 20, or 100 years. And all of that life force energy of potential is artificially cut short and then is shunted into the membrane of death. It is shunted into the limbo worlds of unrestfulness. The soul of the child that is aborted often does not comprehend how this can actually happen. When I talk about trauma as being a frozen stasis, and again, if you've had an abortion, if this is triggering to you, I am not here to make your life harder. I hope that what I'm talking about in frank language will prevent people from having more abortions when you find out what it actually happens. Because many people are like, the baby doesn't know anything. It's not consciousness. This is just a mere, vagary of cells. There's nothing that bad is happening. And I'm like, no, on a soul level, there's consciousness involved from the moment of conception. And as that child is developing, that child has this sense from its point of view, like, oh, I'm going to come to earth and I'm going to have this experience. And when the abortion happens, it is an attack on that soul. They're floating in what should be a beautiful heavenly paradise state in the womb. They are not prepared to be attacked. And when they are killed, and then that soul goes to its life assessment, it's pretty much like, what did I do wrong? I was just trying to come into the world. What did I do wrong? And the answer is you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't deserve to be dismembered in your process of trying to, I want to say, germinate, gestate. You deserved to gestate and come into being and not to be destroyed because of the convenience of another person. I don't want to hurt moms that are like, I didn't destroy my baby out of convenience. And there were many, many reasons why this happened. I know, I recognize that. So I'm not trying to sound cruel. Pardon me, I'm going to sneeze too. Pardon me. So I'm not a cruel or cold-hearted or judgmental person at all. But I'm giving you frank talk that babies that reach the membrane of death before they even get a chance to be born, they are ultimately traumatized because they come from a beautifully heavenly place, expect to be carried and gestated and safe in the womb. And when this abortion happens to them, they think like, how can this happen? They are actually frozen in a state of shock. And they never even got a chance to come and be alive the way that we got a chance to come and be alive. It is a huge trauma farm for this world that is already a trauma farm. It is a huge wish farm. So you have the soul of the baby that is being harvested or loosed or traumatized. And then you also have the mom. Mostly moms feel regret or bad feelings or guilt or just not positive about it. And I know this is also the Sex and the City world where some people are like, very like, no, like I'm sex positive and I had 12 abortions and I'm feeling great about it. And again, I'm not here to diminish anybody in their life. Don't think that that's how we really want to be either. I don't think that the ideal is to remove judgment from the activity of abortion and make it infinitely available and celebrate people that have had multiple abortions. I think that it's a non-ideal kind of sad thing that happens that we need to restructure your entire society in order to make it not happen. So very, very sad, not ideal, something to be avoided at almost all costs if you can possibly avoid it and be conscious of what you're doing. If you've had abortions, it doesn't mean that you're going to burn in Christian hell. It does not mean that you're whatever forfeited your soul because you did the very worst thing or any kind of thing like that. No, not at all. And everything has a context and a reason why this has happened. So, because again, when I've spoken about this in the past, people ask me questions in an interview. This is like all the way back in 2017 or so, and I said what I said about abortions. I got so much blowback, just like from gay people. Then I got blowback from abortion people that were like, I don't, deserve this level of judgment, and I didn't do anything wrong, and this and that, and I had to do it because of my life, and that they were destabilized because I told them the energetic truth. So the energetic truth is you're painting with a paintbrush, you're going to make a painting. You've got to be prepared for that. And that abortion has huge soul level repercussions. And you got to be prepared for that too. Okay. Big, deep stuff. You're painting with indelible ink in the realm of DNA and souls. And you can't pretend otherwise. And I can't sugarcoat it in order to make it feel better for everyone. But my proposal, again, is not to make abortion either illegal or so judgmental that people can't do it or won't do it, but instead to give females total empowerment, total financial empowerment without having to have a job. And everyone's going to be like, well, now you're just making welfare queens. No, I'm saying that if you have babies, having babies is a sacred activity and you need to be supported by your society so that you actually have the money that you need, whether or not you can work and whether or not you have some kind of whatever, an online or home gig where you're working from your home or whatever, making things. Just have a break. Have a break on this very, very heavy topic. Hug a dog. Cheeky deserves all the hugs and all the praise. Cheeky did a great job. She was in the car with me for 9 hours there and 9 hours back. And she was so good, girl. And she got to eat all of the treats and cookies. I got all of her favorite flavors. And we got a big belly because we ate a lot of treats and cookies. Now we're finally just getting back to exercise. But Cheeky's amazing and did such a good job at the retreat and traveling and hugging everyone. And she genuinely loved all of the people that were there at the retreat. She had such a beautiful connection with everyone. So just want to say, having a brief moment's pause from difficult topics, and we might see if we're going to get a breath. Okay? Get a breath. Come on, Cheeky, we'll get a nice little breath. Hold on one moment, guys. I'll just press pause and we'll return. And I have a question from Joyce. So just press pause here. I will come back. Joyce has a question. She says, does that apply to miscarriages? Miscarriages are a separate topic than abortions because sometimes miscarriages happen when there is a non-ideal state in the pregnancy. Sometimes that happens because it is not a viable pregnancy and the woman cannot carry it to term. So when that happens, the soul of the child that doesn't get a chance to be born, they reach the afterlife and they're like, hey, like what happened? And the answer is your stomach was developing outside of your body. You know what I mean? Or like you were going to be born without a brain, or you were going to be born, whatever, in such a deformed state that there was not a way for you to be born. Understand? So for in the case of miscarriages, it happens because it is a non-viable pregnancy. So if there is a healthy pregnancy that is terminated in abortion, that's a totally different situation because that person could have been born and could have lived to be whatever age 60 or 70 or 90 or 100. But if a person is born without a spinal column or without a brain or whatever it is, it's a very, very low likelihood that they will be able to live even a day. All right. And it's not required to carry that pregnancy to term. You can either have a miscarriage or have one of these types of abortions that is a medical abortion because your baby literally is not going to be able to be alive. And I don't require that women carry non-viable pregnancies to term because that is a danger to the mother. I'm definitely well informed about all of these things. Like I said, even though I have not had pregnancies myself, but that happens. Sometimes there are ectopic pregnancies where the conception happens in the fallopian tube. The mother's life is at risk. Sometimes there are ectopic pregnancies that happen where the baby floats all the way to the liver. It never makes its way to the womb. It's developing in the wrong organ. You cannot have that baby. You got it? So in positive energetic terms, what you have to comprehend is that in order to have a healthy pregnancy and a real baby, you've got material from your dad, material from your mom. You've got these amazing strings of energy that are coming together in the moment of lovemaking. And they come together and they're like this. Kapow! And then there's this beautiful symmetrical unfoldment, if not explosion, of formfulness that happens. And that initial vector of the genetic materials and the energy coming together is essential. What was happening in that moment in both the male and the female and in their bodies and in the chemical atmosphere of their world. Like if you are being exposed to gasoline fumes or some other toxin in the environment when that is happening, then you might not have a viable pregnancy. Or what if the kapow isn't perfectly like this? What if it's like this? Oh, one of them is off a little bit or in the wrong direction a little bit. And then you end up having a non-symmetrical profusion of cellular development. Then that is why there are things that are called congenital birth defects and non-viable pregnancies. So again, putting all the pieces of a watch inside of a pillowcase and shaking it up does not mean that you will get a watch and a Rolex out the other side. Having a Rolex emerge from the pillowcase is 100% miraculous. And that you don't get an endless supply of miracles in the world that you're in. Sometimes you get non-miracles. So all of that, I hope that people never feel bad, wrong, guilty, or ashamed because they've had miscarriages, had non-viable pregnancies, spontaneous ending of pregnancies. And this happens. And it's a natural part of trying to have babies. And what we're facing right now is actually the very challenging, perilous time of human fertility is so diminished, both in males' motility of their sperm, how wiggly their little sperm are and how easily they can get inside to be able to fertilize the egg, and also how non-viable some of the eggs are, as many of these subcutaneous pollutions directly target, it is called the something follicular stimulating hormone, something, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but directly targets that hormone that makes an egg come to fruition and be fertile to be able to be fertilized by a male. This is an anti-fertility agenda that's going on by the same people that are like, people can't go around having 12 babies and we'll have an overpopulation. We better give them these injections so that nobody can have babies anymore. You can tell in my face I'm very mad. It's totally wrong. Because you know what you could do instead of giving people injections to sterilize them is give them empowerment and education and also financial resources. So a big difficulty here when we're talking about abortion and fertility rates and motherhood is the sense of traditionally in your world, males have all the jobs, males have all the money, and then they give you a little bit of allowance. Like you will stay home and take care of the children. Here's your small allowance for doing this sacred activity. Then let's say you get divorced. You're like, okay, great. I'm a woman and I have 3 children and I'm breastfeeding. And somehow I have to be around to feed my children every 2 hours, but still somehow make money. That means you can't just go off to the office and be like, okay, babies, you stay home. I will not feed you every 2 hours. Somehow take care of yourself. I have to go over here and make money for human cultural considerations. Can't do that. So the entire world of corporate work was set up for males and in a disempowerment of females. With the internet and with e-commerce, what a lot of women and a lot of moms have done is find a way to be able to stay home with their children, do homeschooling, and run a home business at the same time. And that is beautiful that women are that empowered and that intelligent and that caring about their families, but that is not ideal. What we need to do is do much better as a society so that way women have everything that they need, whether or not they create an e-commerce shop or put something on Etsy or are whatever. Some women do like recipes, you know what I mean? Like they're having a side gig making recipes and selling that so that way they can still be home for their children instead of having to work outside of the home. None of this is ideal. We need to make sure that women, as sacred caregivers for the next generation, are taken care of. And I don't mean with some kind of like welfare or universal basic income. I mean that women have everything. Women should own the property. It was only like 50 years ago that women were allowed to have their own credit cards. This is how much the world of finances has been skewed in favor of males and away from females. Like you're in a very, very unfair world. And that has been infinitely evident to me in being here as a woman. And sometimes women are on a career track and then they stop and they have their baby and then they go back into their career after a couple of years and then they're at disadvantaged in comparison to their male peers. They make less and are less appreciated in the corporate workspace. All right. Here's another bad example. Daycare. Daycare is totally effed up because I know some women who had their maternity leave and then they were still breastfeeding 3 months after they had given birth. They had to go back to work because their maternity leave is over. Body's not ready. After 3 months, you're not back in shape. Like if it took you a year to have pregnancy, you need at least a year to recover from the pregnancy and get back to your original shape or stabilize your new shape. And then also, most women are breastfeeding over that first year if they're in rapport with their biology and what their baby actually needs. And most women that I know that go back to work that soon have huge qualms. They're like, I don't want to go back to work. I want to stay home and hug my baby. You get oxytocin with your baby. This is also, I mean, you have oxytocin so that your partner doesn't leave you. You also have oxytocin so that in your sleep deprived, postpartum state, you don't just like leave your baby to die of exposure outside because you are totally stressed out as a new parent. I'm being like somewhat laughing and facetious, but a lot of new parents have a lot of challenges like lack of sleep, challenges with nursing, diapering, all of these things. Like it can be really stressful. Again, I'm not a parent. I know parents. I know that this is what's going on. So the oxytocin and the bonding makes you feel like, I love my baby. I don't want to leave my baby. I don't want to leave my baby to be exposed and die. I want to take care of my baby. You don't want to have to leave your baby in order to go work for your corporate job and also to pay someone for childcare. So if you're going to pump your breast milk and put it in a container and send your baby with your containers full of breast milk to a childcare professional for being taken care of during your 8-hour workday, and then it literally costs you the amount that you're earning at work to be able to do that because childcare and daycare is so very expensive. Like all of this is insanity. None of this honors the biological imperatives. And also, I haven't spoken enough about males because, dads also want to stay home with their children. And there is such a thing as maternity leave, but not every company or country honors paternity leave. And we do want to really encourage dads who are involved as parents, dads who do diapering. Dads can't lactate, but dads can help with diapering. Dads can help with feeding and hydrating their lactating, spouse, partner, lover, wife. Dads can do a lot in terms of helping in that first year after a baby is delivered. And they are expected to and required to, but in previous generations, dads were not expected to be involved as parents. They were expected to get out there into the workforce. Or maybe go on a sailing voyage and come back with whale blubber, in several months. Or go off a Viking and, come back with spoils of victory. But they were not expected to stay home and to diaper the children. So I'm saying all this because you have to totally recalibrate your whole entire society in order to have a healthy society. And that also involves what's going on with males. Males, okay, so wait, I don't know. Did I say enough distressing things about pregnancy and about abortion? Because now I'm going to talk about males and your penises. Penises are not okay. We got to laugh about this, but wait, Pedro has a comment. Pedro says, what can be used or done to have a perfect conception in pregnancy? Can we use Merkaba and FRL or something else like your necklace? Yeah, so that's a great question. In order to optimize pregnancy and conception, you would have to create a frequency pure space. which is what in other times and places people would make love in a sacred temple. And that's what sacred temples are. They're beautiful edifices that usually are blessed and consecrated and contain sacred space. They usually contain things that emanate energy that is life affirming energy. It is often done in conjunction with the seasons, the moon. Often there is special music playing. Sometimes there are special incenses or aromas playing, everything that has positive frequency. This is how you have a conscious conception. And also so you want to also conceive either like in a temple, or you know what else? Like imagine conceiving your baby while making love on the forest floor with all these beautiful giant redwood trees around you. You got it? Like if you've ever visited the redwoods, it's a sacred place. It's an outdoor cathedral. Find a beautiful sacred place. Ideally, you would not be like in the back seat of, like a Chevy, but a lot of people conceive babies in that way. Okay, so now I will tell an Aurora story. When I first came here as Aurora, literally, I was on Overlook Mountain, which is a sacred mountain, and I had only been here for a couple of days. And I was in the parking area of that mountain by the trailhead, and I was sleeping in my vehicle, and other people were driving up there in their vehicles. And, when you make love, your energy field expands way out, and I can see it and sense it. And I can definitely see it and sense it then. And I could tell like people in the car next to me were making love. And I was like, that is strange and weird because they're like in their car. It's not exactly a sacred temple, but I started to get things and understand why they do it in that way. And then also, I could totally sense here is what happens with the soul of the child. So the soul of the person who's going to be the child starts to see like, oh, like this couple is down there in this backseat of the Chevy, kind of interested in what's going on. I'm talking as a soul. And it kind of starts to like look. It's like, it's interesting. And as you look at them, like the child's soul, it cares about the mom, it cares about the dad, cares about who they are as people, it cares about and feels their passions and their yearning, and kind of starts to get magnetically attracted or drawn inward more and more and more. And if the child's soul gets drawn all the way in, and there's that perfect, symmetrical coming together of the potential of biological materials, the soul comes into those biological materials at that moment and then begins the act of entering into the physical world. And I was like watching this whole thing happen there in the parking lot. And so these things are happening. They're the most magical, sacred things, but they are happening often in the most like mundane or profane circumstances. People have sex in like, the bathroom at a nightclub or like weird places that are not beautiful temples. But ideally, you would create a beautiful frequency space, a beautiful energetic space. And you would do what I said, conscious conception, which is where you've already been thinking about and calling in the child that would like to be your child and would like to be a part of your family, and that it's a desired pregnancy. And that I recognize it's a very, very difficult topic, and people might be going down like this and they might be feeling like they didn't want their pregnancies, or they didn't want their children, or they didn't want any of these things, or maybe they didn't feel wanted as a child. I recognize all of those feelings, okay? But ideal terms, want to have a baby, it's a desired pregnancy, and the soul is like, I want you to be my mom and I want you to be my dad, and I'm coming in now, like let's do this together. I think I know maybe one family in my life right now that is like that. They're beautiful people. They have an amazing love bond, and the mom, the dad, and the adult child at this point are all together on the soul's journey, learning from each other, uplifting one another. They have a beautiful dynamic. I'm happy I know at least one family in this world that is formed correctly in that way, because most of the families that I know in this world are very dysfunctional. And let's laugh, because I'm sure most of you are probably relating, and you're like, yep, family's dysfunctional. When family's effed up, everybody's screwed up. I know. And let's make things different for the future and the next generations, and those who are conscious and who are in control of their bodies and in control of their sexuality and their mating. Create new dynamics, fix and heal things, use this beautiful family that I know as a template. But I am really, really very painfully aware that the sexual dynamics on this planet are very distorted, to the point that I do not really connect with the sexual dynamics on this planet. So I am a sexually healthy person, but I do not connect with the sexual dynamics on this planet, meaning I do not connect my orange chakra of passion to the network of orange chakras on this planet, because you guys were all super duper destabilized, wildly destabilized. Some of it is from what is culturally normative, and some of it is from dark ritual, dark magic, and satanic abuse. Because that stuff is all really, really bad and wrong and destabilizes people that are even trying to have healthy relationships. The answer is like you're all tied together like ice climbers, like mountaineers, and there's not really a way for you to be like, yeah, like those guys over there are screwed up and they're all looking at porno and having the worst visions of what it is to be a woman, but these guys over here are all fine. Like it's all connected. It's all connected. And so when there's destabilization of certain levels of society that are diminishing or objectifying women or exploiting women or exploiting children or doing things that are wrong and unhealthy, it absolutely leads through to the entire fabric of sexuality in this world. And it is an assault on Earth and on Earth's fertility and on Earth as a consciousness in terms of manifestation. Manifesting children is what sex is really about. And there's a largely distorted experience right now of how people manifest the next generation through sexuality. Okay, Mouse, let's talk about your penises. Your penises have been genetically modified. The major change that has been made in your equipment and your anatomy has not even been about the size or form, but more about the function and arousal. That your penises are designed to be directly connected to your emotional centers, and they are meant to make a male much more emotionally receptive than most of the males that you know in this world, where people have been genetically modified from like 5,000 years ago. Having a penis and external genitalia is supposed to make males much more accommodative, or how can I say it, like because you have a vulnerability that is outside of your body to recognize and to want to act correctly with those body parts. But there's been a concerted agenda of desensitization of males and depersonalization or disconnection from the activity of their penis, to the point where everyone, I think, is aware of these various different comedies and shows where it's like, well, my mind up here wants this, but my mind down here wants this. Like there are many comedy routines about that, about males being disconnected from their arousal and from their levels of primal attraction and who they're attracted to as a mate. That's not the way it's supposed to be. So let's talk about things in ideal terms. The response of being attracted to a partner and, you know, being ready to have sex is supposed to be directly related to emotional feelings, that emotional feelings of caring for and loving and wanting to be with a partner, as opposed to wanting to harm them, exploit them, or take something from them. So I had to learn a lot about sex in this world. I, of course, came here with the assumption that sex is an expression of tenderness and caring for a partner. But in this world, not only anal sex, but sometimes regular vaginal sex is used as an expression of power and domination over another person. Here's the unhealthy way of saying it is like, I desire you. This is from the viewpoint of an unhealthy male. I desire you. I want you. I want to have you. I want to get something from you. I want what you've got, but I hate you because you've got it. I feel less because I don't have it. It's like, it's possessiveness. It's the negative inverse shadow of what emotional attachment and mammalian emotions should be, because it should be, I love you, I care about you, I find you attractive, I want to connect with you energetically, make offspring with you, and then be an engaged parent and care for you as a mother, care for the offspring that we create together. That's healthy. The unhealthy is, I want you, I hate you, I want to own you, I want to get something from you. You make me feel complete. I want to keep you with me, even if you don't want to be with me. And I don't care if this feels good to you as long as it feels good to me. None of that is okay. And this is not to create blanket, you know, accusations across all males. Please know that I recognize that there is a wide array of behaviors out there. There are some males that are very evolved, very correct, very beautiful in their emotions, and they do what I described the first way. They're very caring, they're very attentive, and they're good partners. And there are some males that are not good partners, okay? It was a genetic modification roughly about 5,000 years ago that came along at the same time with other genetic splicing. And the other genetic splicing was kind of like, I think you guys would call it Sumerian or Anunnaki, but it took away humans from your wild, feral, domesticated state. It made you eat physical food, like work for money, live in civilization, the invention of working for money, the invention of civilization, and a lot of stuff about ownership of property, personal property, owning women as property. And there was a genetic modification that was a distancing of males and their arousal state from their emotions. That's it. That in healthy males and in healthy societies, males only attracted to people who are appropriate, fertile partners of the opposite sex, because that's who you're going to make a baby with. You can't be attracted to like a log in the river, even if it's shaped somewhat like a female or has an orifice. It's like, you're not going to make a baby. That's not going to happen. It does not matter how much sperm you put into it, you will not get a baby as a result. It is essential to be attracted to fertile women. So that also begins to talk about why it is so inappropriate to choose partners who are too young. Why is pedophilia wrong? And I'm not just talking about males, and I don't want males to feel unduly under scrutiny on this, but we have to recognize in our world right now that that is a very harmful activity that is directly related to satanic ritual use, and that although both genders are perpetrators, a lot of the industry of underage sexuality is focused on pleasing the desires of males. So that has to do everything with pornography. Pornography is largely geared towards males. The male gaze, eyesight, how males look at the world, males being aroused by different visual stimulation, and the entire sex industry that involves slavery of children. It's pretty much to cater to the desires and whims of very, very dysfunctional males who have been genetically modified away from their emotional response, but then also some of them have been penis lobotomized. That is what circumcision is. That is a genital mutilation that is horrific, although it is accepted as a cultural norm. I am pushing everybody's buttons and making everybody feel very uncomfortable because they're like, that's my culture. It's important. It's how we worship the Lord. And I'm like, I'm very, very sad that anybody thinks that the way that they should worship any form of deity is to cut off a body part in honor of that deity, especially that body part, because that literally causes huge amounts of trauma in brain of the male baby, and it prevents the development of some of the administrative thought patterns that should happen in direct relationship to sexuality and sexual arousal. It's like you never even get a chance. And I'm sorry, again, to any males who have been mutilated in this way. I don't want to make you feel bad about yourself. I don't want you to feel traumatized. I want to recognize what's been done to you. And I want to say, let's not do this to the next generation. And as I've been here for about 20 years, there's a much bigger cultural conversation that is going on now about what is called intact, the intact movement of mothers protecting their children and fathers protecting their children from passing on the negative cultural habits that have come before you. And the habit of circumcision, it comes directly from a satanic piece of literature that you guys know as the Holy Bible. It's not good stuff. And I know that I'm offending people because they're like, that Holy Bible is my moral compass, and it tells me what's right and wrong, and it tells me it is right to remove the foreskin of my male children in order to honor my relationship with God. And I'm like, that is not right. That is inherently wrong and doing a disservice to your relationship to God. That we really have to say when we are in divine connection, that our bodies are formed in divinely intentional ways. and that to remove healthy body parts that have very, very meaningful functions is not honoring divinity. So it not only is a trauma to do this to tiny male children, but it also changes the way their brains even can function. And as part of the exacerbation of the genetic modification, that is a disconnect between arousal and who you are attracted to and the sexual activity. So the penis that is supposed to be very vulnerable and very sensitive now becomes desensitized and becomes used more like a weapon of suppressing others. And now I have to talk about, and I'll get to your question, thank you so much. Some of the languaging around sexuality is implicitly talking about out of balance energy. So in business, if you're in a poor energy exchange, it's not fair. They call it getting screwed. Pardon my language. This is hard to talk about these things. But yeah, it's like saying you got shafted. You were exploited and did not receive an equal amount of what is fair. Literally, the definition of how humans talk about the activity of having sex and orgasm is innately the same as how people talk about a business deal that is not satisfactory to both parties. Although your sex should not be quid pro quo, it should be equally satisfactory to both participants. But the languaging around sexuality denotes the truth of what is happening in this sexually dysfunctional society where one person is feeling pleasure at the expense of another. And oftentimes the males are the ones who are feeling the pleasure at the expense of the females, sometimes to very, very great distress of the females, and sometimes to very great harm of the female anatomy. And this is even when they are using the right hole. And when they are not using the right hole, even worse distress to the female, even worse distress to the anatomy. I cannot say enough things about how the anus is an excretory organ and you should not put things inside of it. That's my TED talk. Thank you. Yeah, that would be it. That would be my entire TED talk. But I feel like I have to give remedial information to this world when I started to find out about what's going on here. I'm like, no, you should not put things in there. That's not what that is for. And when people do that, it is a violation. And it's a violation that relates to a negative inverse. That's what satanic ritual abuse is, the negative inverse of sexuality. Sexuality being used as a weapon instead of something to bring people closer together, but is used instead to victimize and subjugate people and make them into traumatized slaves. It's all horrible stuff. It's very, very bad stuff. So basically, sexuality is supposed to be the most divine, most special and sacred act of what you're doing here in the world. Sex is a ritual. Casual sex is like casual ritual. There's no such thing. Casual sex is a lie, and it's created in that way or perpetrated in that way in order to get people to do this very, very deep soul quantum bonding while thinking that they're not really doing anything in the backseat of a Chevy, and then thinking that it was just a quick little liaison, and then they're never going to see that person again or be impacted by them again. And even if you had a 5-minute liaison in the back of a Chevy, you're going to be connected to that person for many, many years because there will be strings of energy between you guys. And yes, someone's going to ask telepathically, but wait, is there a way to do cord cutting or energetic tide removal? And so you don't have to wait 7 years? The answer is yes, of course. There's always a way to be able to do that if you are conscious. So you might have been less conscious in your sex life in earlier years and then learned and become conscious and be like, I don't really want to be tethered to hundreds of male partners that are connecting to your uterus and drawing upon your life force energy. You might want to remove those various tendrils. And someone's also going to ask, do those tendrils happen even in moments of sexual violence? And the answer is yes. Yes. It's not bad enough that you were raped, that it took whatever, 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. Maybe you were gang raped. Sorry, trigger alert, bad things happen. And it's horrible. But that then you might have 10 unwanted visitors connecting to your womb over the course of many years. That is a huge part of healing the after effects of sexual violence. Not just the social, emotional, and ego presence of a person who has been violated, but the energy of the violation. Their system has been hacked. Their bank account has been hacked. These guys are going to be drawing upon that energetic bank account for many years. And it's absolutely essential for anybody. And so if you're a woman and you are a person who's experienced sexual violence and survived it, then yes, you're going to want to remove those energy ties. But let's say, what if you are a man? What if you are a young man or a child and you are subjected to sexual violence? What if things were placed into the excretory organ that should not have been placed there? And now there are strings of energy between you and perpetrators. You definitely want to remove those strings of energy. I'm going to say something right now that might be so radical, but will totally enlighten you as to the dynamics of your world. These dark societies of non-consensual anal sex pretty much run your world. And if you could see with magic glasses these energetic ties between people's different orifices and genitals, you would see that in government bureaucracies and the military and the church and even in the world of technology, there's a lot of penises that went into a lot of anuses for the purposes of domination. And it's a whole system of puppetry where these guys over here violate these guys' anuses over here. And then these guys over here violate these guys' anuses over here. Do you get it? It is a whole giant society of violation, domination, and emotional control through the placement of the penis in the anus of both males and females. So, of course, females do not have penises. They cannot be placing their penises inside of someone else's anus. Females are 100% the energy bank that someone else is violating. But males can be both a perpetrator and an experiencer survivor. And that is pretty much how this network works. The perpetrators make the next generation perpetrates that upon others. They should be smart enough to know that they shouldn't spread that to the next generation of innocent people. They should turn it around and they should F the A's of the guys that did it to them, but they don't, because it is a negative, inverted, satanic society. So they proliferate instead of becoming empowered from their experience and then getting justice from the people that violated them. They go off and they violate the next people. And that's happening in your intelligence agencies, in your militaries, in, again, high levels of finance, entertainment industry. Tons of famous people doing this. If you could, again, see with the magic glasses, you would be amazed at the strings that are coming out of this guy's anus, connecting to this person over here, or connecting to this person over here. So it's not just the casting couch. It's not just, as we call it, the Me Too movement. All of that is a sanitized, surface level comprehension of what is happening, of females either selling in quid pro quo or non-consensually required to give access to their sexuality in order to move ahead in the world of business and opportunity. Did I not mention that? Did I not mention that all of the money should go to women and that you shouldn't have to sit on the casting couch in order to get some money from some gross old whatever fat belly perpetrating male that wants to power abuser take advantage of you? No, you should have all the money in the world. That someone was like sitting on the casting couch and then you get a job, like chomping their cigar, like, hey kid, hey girl, I'll give you a job. You just have to sit on the casting couch with me. And you'd be like, I have $5 million. I do not need your stupid effing job. Shove it up your own anus. Get out of here, you disgusting old man. That is what females should say in the world that I'm hoping to create, where I want females to have all the money. Sorry, males, I want you to have money too, but I also want you to not have broken penises and to use them correctly. All right? All right. There's a lot of stuff here that I'm talking about that I'm sure is very difficult to hear. The control system from anal violation is esoteric and emotional. It is not analytical. When people do this to one another, they gain access to emotional centers and willpower and volition that they would not have access to through consent. So homosexuals who are having anal sex, this does not apply to you. This is not what I'm talking about. And most of these relationships that I am talking about are not relationships. These are, and this is also not the level of like Sparta, ancient Sparta, or the pirates sailing ships, where males simply did not have access to female partners, and so they simply found an orifice to be able to be satisfied with. In Sparta, they did that for bonding. They were like, we're going into battle together. We're going to have to care about one another on the deepest level possible. And so they were anal sex partners. They also did not have females as available to them for sex. Same thing on pirates' ships. They did not have access to females on long voyages. And so they would have relationships that are sometimes consensual with one another, or sometimes non-consensual with younger males that were on board the ship. And they couldn't run away, and there was nowhere that they could go, right? But what I'm talking about is things that happen in the army, intelligence agencies. Again, I mentioned the government. And you already, I think, are quite aware as I'm saying this, you guys are like, oh, like, what about Pizzagate? Yeah, this is what I'm talking about in your government. So there are high-level perpetrators in your government that are often furnished with children that are not consensual. They are not old enough to be able to furnish consent and to be in relationships, and they are violated. And they are, the older generation was energized through this violation. The children are largely discarded, either discarded into drug addiction or sometimes literally killed, and sometimes literally cannibalized. It is the darkest stuff you could possibly know about. But when government administrators do things like that in the presence of one another, they become empowered through their dark rituals and through the blackmail that they have on one another. Do you understand the energetic strings, the emotional manipulation, and puppet strings? This is so far away from what sexuality was designed for, as a sacred chalice for the transference of energy and information and DNA from one generation to another. Your DNA is like a library, like the library at Alexandria contains all of the beautiful information of the cosmic infrastructure. And being used in these ways is the most desecrating way that they can be used. The satanic guys love it. They're like, yep, smash Fabergé egg. Do the worst thing that you can with the most valuable aspect of yourself. It's really terrible stuff. And I mean, you can tell like this is a very, very difficult lecture to present of very difficult topics that I must be completely honest about in order to inform you or illuminate you about the truth of your realm, because people don't talk about all these things as much as they actually need to. People don't acknowledge the real source of what is the problem. Like, what is the real problem with abortion? The real problem with abortion is women who don't have a voice, can't advocate for themselves, and are expected to allow males to impregnate them, whether or not it's a desired pregnancy. And that women sometimes also have abortions because they don't have the money to be able to take care of their children, because running an Etsy shop from their home office is simply not enough in this world to be able to afford blah 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 on your mortgage and really become a property owner. It's not by accident. It's all very, very intentional. So wait, press pause on all this difficulty for me. I'm sweating, but if you can even tell. Melly, thank you for being here, says, Aurora, why do you think men stay fertile for most of their lives while women do not? Okay. I already mentioned women can be fertile for many decades longer than the traditional medical science tells you about, but I'll also tell you this. The moon that you have in the sky is a non-natural object that has a huge impact on human fertility and human sexual expression. The moon is a construct. It was not put there by something good that wants to help you. It was put there by something very bad that is trying to harm and limit humanity. And part of what it has done is to create over fertilization. Humans are supposedly, quote unquote, the only animal that mates outside of its time of fertility. So most animals have a mating season. That's what I'm looking for. Human mating season is all year long, baby. All year long, baby. I want to go into some silly song like, I'm your boogeyman all year long. Sorry, getting very silly. You're supposed to have a mating season, and that would also limit population and limit excessive pregnancies, and also limit the danger to females from the possibility of being pregnant throughout your whole entire life. Like in some areas of the world right now, and in Northern Europe during the darkest times of recent history, known as like the Dark Ages, women were just pregnant throughout their whole entire lives, from the moment that they became fertile in their mid-teens until they died, probably like a puppy mill, toothless, and having had, toothless, stretched out, and having had 12 million babies. Maybe only one of the babies even survived due to severe malnutrition and other, like lack of hygiene and other terrible diseases. That would not happen if you were only, let's say, able to be fertile once a year. But instead, you have human females who can be fertile 12 times a year. And it's hugely out of balance from the way it's actually supposed to be. So the real answer is that both genders, I want to say both human male and human female, fertility has been wildly exaggerated and amplified by the presence of the moon for purposes of diminished consciousness and reduction of personal freedom. Males often feel like they have too much sexual energy. You're not supposed to have sex every day. Males would say, I think you should have sex every day, right? Males are laughing. Sorry. But you're not supposed to have sex every day. And you're not supposed to have sex like multiple times a day. And you're not supposed to have sex multiple times a night. You guys are like, whoa, you're no fun. Yeah, but seriously, sex is supposed to be something that you have once a month. And what you're supposed to do is save up all of your sexual energy for that encounter with your partner once a month. And that means that one activity is like hugely focused and hugely important and hugely significant. And again, this is considered to be tantric. That's the word that you guys have for what I'm teaching you about. But it's, looking at sex as divine ritual union, something that you cultivate yourself for that the whole entire month in order to then have your coming together with your partner at the moment of fertility. You're not supposed to have sex while you're on your period. That's like as wrong as putting things into your anus. Like, no, when you're on your period, you are not fertile, and you're supposed to be able to have a rest, and you're supposed to wear sweatpants and eat extra calories. That could be like salty French fries or could be chocolate. Okay. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. This is what it is to be a woman. But the idea of being always available to your mate in order to maintain your marriage and to please your husband is totally wrong. And so even, an attentive male would be like, oh, like you're on your period. This is your fallow time. I'm not supposed to do this with you right now. But lack of education and lack of anatomical education of males has made males make it, normative or normal to be able to be like, yeah, I want to have sex every day as like clockwork. That is not what the body is made for. It's not the correct way to treat the body. And again, I feel a little bit like I am an otherworldly presence that is coming here. I am new to having this type of a body, but I feel like I need to give humans like remedial lessons of like, this is what you should do with your body. This is what you should not be doing with your body. And it is positive and healthy for males to have sex and to ejaculate. I'm not saying any of these things about male continence, where they sometimes talk about like how you should not ejaculate. Actually, I think that's not that good. I think you should ejaculate and have healthy orgasm. I think females should have healthy orgasm. I was also, oh my God, I was shocked and dismayed when I found out that many people were having anorgasmic sex. I'm like, that's like, you're not actually putting paint on your paintbrush. That is not, you're doing something wrong if you're not having orgasm. Like, of course, you should have sensual pleasure and you should culminate in orgasm. Okay, what is orgasm? Orgasm is when the energy has circulated upward from the sacral region of your body, which is your lumbar, where you have a reservoir of energy, both male and female, and it goes up your spine in figure eights, and it then comes outward either through your third eye here or through your crown here. And that is what orgasm is. And when we do sun gazing, it uses similar pathways in the body, but you do not do self-stimulation of your actual reproductive organs. It's all through energy. and the sun is your partner, even though you don't have to sexualize it by thinking that you are having sex with the sun, but you are creating a rapport of conscious creation and manifestation with the sun. And the energy flows up your legs, up your pelvis, up your spine, and out through the top of your head. And that is what sun gazing is. And when you do orgasm with your partner, first of all, you are supposed to be face to face. We have to talk about position. Like, these things are all making you all feel very uncomfortable. I understand that. It is not the same when you achieve other body positions, and a lot of that is evidence of dysfunction in your society. You are actually supposed to be face to face with your partner, and you're actually supposed to have your spine erect, and you're supposed to be able to do other important things like connecting your mouths together, because that makes a figure eight between your mouths. Like when you do solo meditation, you put your tongue on the roof of your mouth in order to create that bridge between your throat chakra to your third eye. But when you're with your partner, you touch your tongues together so that way you create a figure eight between the two of you. So you have a connection at the level of your pelvis with figure eights going all the way up your spine, figure eights through your mouth. And then also when you have an orgasm, the energy goes into both partners at the level of the pelvis and also at the level of the third eye. And you are sharing energy inside of each other. And again, this might sound like rudimentary. It is rudimentary. I have to do the ABCs. You have to start with the ABCs of sexuality for humans, because again, like, you don't necessarily know all the right way to do things, and you kind of need mentorship and finger shaking. And you should not put foreign objects inside your body either. I'm sorry. You should not put foreign objects inside your body. You should not put foreign objects inside your body. Okay. But condoms, yes. You should use birth control. Barrier birth control is good. Hormonal birth control is not good, but you should not put other forms of foreign objects inside your body. I'm just telling you. Okay, thank you. My TED Talk is over on that part. You should be sharing energy when you do sexuality right, because I know I'm talking in funny comedic ways, but if I talk in really heartfelt ways, that sex should be high points of your life. It should be some of the most amazing peak moments of your life. Not something that is like a casual, sandwich that you eat every day, or a casual workaday thing, not something that is obligatory, and not something that is coerced or commodified in any way. And of course, it's distressing when people are commodifying their sexuality or access to their sexuality, or even engaging in sexual objectification and commodification. And that would be something like OnlyFans or other forms of pornography, none of which is sex positive and none of which is empowering to women. So the disconnect between penises and penis arousal and emotional energy has to do with, if you are connected to your emotional centers and you are a man and you have real feelings, and you look at a woman who is either in pornography or doing some kind of sexy pole dance or whatever it is, and she is literally objectifying her body and selling it to you, and the male gaze for money, you'd feel like this is not a very good thing. You'd feel like, well, this woman is selling aspects of her private energy because she's not okay in life. Like, maybe she's got a bad life, or maybe she's in an abusive relationship, or maybe she's got drug abuse, or maybe she never knew what real healthy sexuality was, or maybe, key point to rearrange your whole entire social and economic dynamic, couldn't get a better job. That's the worst thing. Like a pole dancer who's dancing her way through medical school. She's going to be a doctor one day, but right now she's lap dancing or doing something else. Or sometimes they have these things like in Peep Show in San Francisco, they have a lot of industry that is no touching, but the women are just behind a pane of glass, and they're kind of like pressing their private parts up against the pane of glass. And these are college girls, and they're going to go off and have a career. But in order to earn money, they're doing this. Your society is broken if that is what girls have to do with their private parts in order to get money in this world. And you might be like, yes, well, boys do it too. They do not do that with peep shows, although there are male strippers. But there are so many abundant ways that males can make money in this world that have nothing at all to do with taking off their clothes or making themselves sexually objectified or sexually available. Now, it's truthful that many of those jobs are hard labor jobs that require muscle mass that most women don't have. like being in construction and being able to do some of this heavy lifting and endurance that with muscles you have to have in order to be able to build houses. A lot of women couldn't do that job. This is why women are like, you will be a pole dancer, or perhaps dance behind a pane of glass over here. You will be your man, you will be a roofer, and you will put, or maybe a framer, carpenter, or do some other form of heavy lifting, work at a cement factory. Okay. Do you understand? This is the biological imperatives on display in economic disparity. And you have to have a better world than this. This world is broken and dysfunctional, and you have to have a way for women to be able to have access to money and to earn dollars that do not involve them selling access to their private parts, and that allow them a pathway to economic freedom and self-sufficiency. I haven't spoken a lot about marriages of convenience, but there have been throughout the ages many marriages of convenience where women were not allowed to have their own jobs, had to be married, had to receive their money from a male partner. And let's talk about the idea. I'm going to get more to your question too, Melly, but let me just go while it's relevant. The idea of a muse. So in artwork and artistry, males have dominated the creation of imagery. And that is why you will see many, many pictures of female nudes. Maybe they are frolicking. Maybe it's a scene from mythology. But whatever it is, it's like, let's find an excuse to have a naked lady in this picture, because men like to both paint naked ladies and men like to look at paintings of naked ladies. But men are not always inspired to paint. Do you know why? Because they don't have a womb. They don't have a direct connection to creative life force energy. But you're going to say, but there are so many wonderful masters, painters, musicians. They were all males. And you know what? The world of art has accepted this kind of transference of creative energy that is called having a muse, a woman that when you have sex with her and get energy from her, you feel a creative explosion. Women were not allowed to be the painter. Women have tons of creative energy. Be like, I'll paint a painting for you. But they were like, no, we do not want to allow you to be a successful painter. We want to have the man be the successful painter and earn the money. But we want you to have sex with the man. And then he's going to paint a painting of you or inspired by you. Or maybe write a book inspired by you, or write a poem inspired by you. He will get the money. You have given him your energy. Now you guys are all going to say, well, what does she get? She does not get very much. Do you understand? This is totally exploitation and not correct. In a correct society, if the males did not have any creative energy or talent or whatever it is, they'd be like, you're not getting into a museum. You're not making anything. The female would paint something because she's got all the creative energy, and she wouldn't be giving it to a male. She would have her own creative energy, create her own imagery, be respected as a painter or a poet or a musician, and get a lot of money. And you would also have many fewer paintings of naked ladies in museums, because women don't necessarily want to make paintings or stare at paintings of naked ladies. Or if they did, they might be in very different contexts. Like there's one French painter, her name was Mary Cassatt. She was always painting like, moms bathing their children. It was always like some innocent type of thing, or it involved some nudity or whatever. Very, very different from the sexualized nudity of like nymphs frolicking, or the goddess Aphrodite, or whatever it was that was used as an excuse to not only have imagery of unclothed women in the house, but also have naked models. You need a figure model to be able to see what you're painting. So if you're one of these male painters, be like, okay, although it's not allowed and frowned upon in our society, I would like for you to stand there with no clothing on for me so that I can look at you for artistic purposes only, of course. I'm not enjoying this at all. It's for art. And the woman's like, okay, you can look at me for art. And he's like, now I'll make a painting. Put it, some man's going to buy it and be like, wifey, I'm buying this painting strictly for art purposes. It's art. It's not because it's a naked lady. And the wife is going to be like, okay, like I'm going to keep my clothes on. I've had 12 babies. I don't look like that. Thank you, Aurora's comedy routine. But seriously, this is the truth of the world of artwork. It's totally changed that around. Because first of all, if women wanted to look at their own bodies and then paint a self-portrait that was naked and then sell it to a man that it would please, like that would be the empowerment that they could do that. Women in the 1800s and earlier could not do that. I mean, there's just so it's exhausting for me to have this conversation because there's so much wrong in your world and so very little right. If you're a person who in any way has had positive connection with partners, if you've had lovers, if you've had people that you cared about deeply and that cared about you deeply, if you've been able to be married for any appreciable amount of time, have children, have successful pregnancies and care for your children, like my hat is off to you. You've done that against all odds. It's the most difficult thing in the world to actually do that in this world, which is again, the odds are stacked against you and many systemic aspects of the world are completely weighted against you. And also if you're a woman and you live in this time and place right now, you might be optimally situated being unmarried. There were many times in human society when you were not allowed to be unmarried as a woman. And you're thinking about stuff, literature that is modern and postmodern feminism, like Handmaid's Tale, and many people have been afraid of a expression of that level of negative control structure and even biblical control structure arising again. Because that happens sometimes, like in a totalitarian society, orthodox cultural and religious paradigms come to the front. So in a time of freedom, you're like, I'm an unmarried woman. I get to do what I want to do. And I don't want to have any penises in my vagina. That's it. I'm an empowered woman. But in a totalitarian state, sometimes they're like, you are a woman and you need to be owned by a man. We need to put some penises in your vagina. This is non-negotiable. And that's pretty much what Handmaid's Tale is about. So we do not want to have that level of totalitarianism. And I'm proposing a complete recalibration of resources in your world in order to favor women. And it's obvious. Right now, the resources in your world favors males. And I'm not anti-male, but in order to be sane and to care for the next generation and to optimize having the next generation, you should recalibrate this to have it favor females, so that or to elevate females, so that way females are able to have all of the money. And then maybe, wouldn't that be so different and refreshing? So like, yeah, maybe you'll get some money from a female if you're lucky. Because there's this whole thing of like, being a woman, you are expected to look beautiful and marry well. This is ancient cultural stuff. In this world, of course, we are expected to go to college as you pole dance your way through college, learning and education, and then have your own career. And then you're still supposed to be breastfeeding your baby on the boobie, and going to your career at the same time. Like, it's just, you're feminists, you're in an impossible situation. But in the past, women were expected to simply be beautiful and find someone who's rich and marry them, and then get money from a man. But wouldn't it be an interesting, change of the dynamic if it was like, no, women have all of the money, and you as a man are going to have to somehow be nice to a woman and somehow get your money by being in a relationship or being nice to a woman? That's almost incomprehensible and would be considered in this society hugely emasculating, as most males get their definition of self and their testosterone boost from the sense of, I killed the dinosaur, I went out hunting, I brought home the bacon, I am your man, and I am sustaining my woman. And so I am really proposing things that are not biblical at all. And I do not think that biblical, social, and sexual dynamics are healthy. In the Bible, women were treated as chattel. They were owned as objects and sold in marriage. This is not healthy and this is not good, and we do not need this or want this. Let me go further. The Bible, as I've said, it's a satanic document, but it is also a cultural document that comes out of a time 5,000 years ago when those people were not even the most cultured people. They were nomadic sheep and goat herders that did not have the most elevated, civilized view of what women are. To contrast, in Egypt, both pre-Pharaonic Egypt and Egypt that you know of pharaohs, within recorded history, women were either in charge, empowered, or equals to males, to the point where when a lot of the Egyptology happened in the 1800s and a lot of these artifacts were uncovered, and the Northern European Egyptologists looked at something that would be like a sculpture where there is a female form who is taller and standing forward and a male form who is shorter and standing back. And they would make up all sorts of bizarre stories about why this is this way. Or sometimes the female is holding the male like this, or it's because the women were in charge. This was sanitized from your mind. You had no idea about this, but the women were in charge. They were in charge of the family. They were in charge of the finances. They were in charge of the spirituality. Women gave birth and were considered to be the fountain of life. And males were not considered to be disposable, mere accoutrements as they have been looked at in the world. I don't want you to feel that way, because a lot of the time males have been looked at as troublemakers, just need some sperm, impregnate someone, and then get out of here, either in a long sailing voyage or possibly dying in a war. That's not what we want either. But that has been for thousands of years the way that males have been diminished and not elevated in domestic family life. But no, in ancient Egypt, there was much more, sorry, I got bugs in my house, much more equality. And also, it was a matriarchy and often matrilineal, meaning that you took your mother's name and got passed down the family identity through mothers, not through fathers. I bring this forward just in order to give you a completely different calibration from a completely different culture that was congruent with the Jewish culture that became the Christian culture. My words didn't come out right, but the Torah, the Bible, that came from these nomadic sheep herders who were patriarchal. They even got a word for the guys in the Bible that are called the patriarchs. That's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These are famous patriarchs, the fathers of your present culture. And that was going on at the same time as both pre-Pharaonic Egypt, before the pharaohs, and in the time of the pharaohs. All right. So people of this, archaeologists and cultural learners of this time, sociologists, did not properly interpret the artifacts that they found from ancient Egypt, because they simply couldn't even imagine, like, women were in charge of the families. Women were in charge of the families. Women were seen as hugely powerful, to the point that males often wore a wig that was like a female-shaped wig in order to signify power. Be like, I'm wearing the ladies' wig. I'm in charge today, because women were in charge, okay? So I'm just trying to plant these seeds so that you can even consider what a recalibration of your world would look like and how that would benefit the procreation of your species. And so what I'm talking about is like the cultural paradigm and the conversation surrounding sex and sexuality. But I also really wanted to focus on the pure energetic activity of sex and sexuality. So the real answer, Melly, going back to this of why men stay fertile and why women do not. If you're in a healthy society, women actually stay fertile for many, many decades. And that you're in this unhealthy society where women are like drawn upon, exploited, used up, and then often their fertility is done by like mid-40s, and it doesn't have to be that way. And also you can maintain, there's a lot. You can maintain not only your fertility for many, many decades, but also your youthful vitality and your continence and your abdominal muscles. Do you understand, like, getting your, not you, but like most humans right now are getting their conception of female athleticism from like the dark ages when women were pregnant throughout their whole entire lives and they never got a chance to shrink their uterus and reestablish their abdominal core muscles. Like, that is a new thing in your world called getting fit after your pregnancy. Like, of course you're supposed to be fit before your pregnancy, during your pregnancy, and after your pregnancy. Like, you're supposed to be allowed to do this. but women were not treated in that way. So that it is necessary to have a completely different conception of what is the female body. The female body is not a chattel to be sold like a camel so that you can then procreate and carry on your male family name. That's Bible. That's wrong stuff. That's exploitation. And when women were sold as chattel, it was like, you're going to give me a baby and you're going to make sure you give me a boy baby because we need to make sure to carry on the name of the family line. And women were not given the option about how many babies they wanted to have or whether they wanted to have these particular babies. So now I have to speak esoterically. This is the good stuff. Women are meant to be the filters to determine what characteristics are passed onward genetically. Women are supposed to be totally empowered to be able to choose our mates based upon whatever personal characteristics are important to us. So this is like, I could say, if I'm a woman, my body, if I only want to mate with someone who is tall, then I can make that choice. And short guys, that's tough luck. It's my choice. And there's no way for you to be able to say, you're only allowed to make this and that choices and you have to mate with short men too. No, because it might be a primal need inside of me to mate with someone who is tall in order to add that characteristic to the next generation. Women are supposed to be able to choose because you should choose whether or not you want to mate with someone who is deformed. What if someone has a biological birth defect? What if they have bad teeth? Do you want to pass that on to your children? What if they have a personality characteristic defect? What if they're violent? What if they're abusive? What if they're physically or verbally abusive or sociopathic? Do you want to pass that characteristic on to the next generation? And the answer is largely no. You don't want a deformed partner and you don't want a sociopath or a psychopath, as those emotional instabilities can either be passed on genetically or can influence your child when you are acculturating your child. You have to have the choice about who you mate with. In our world, women are often broken, and that means that they say no at an early age, that their no is not respected, and then they learn that they are not allowed to say no moving forward. This is what violation does to a woman who is a young woman in development. If you have a family member that you say no to and they violate you, then you learn that basically no one will appreciate your boundaries. People will do whatever they want to do to you no matter what. And you end up with a relationship that is not really of your own choosing. It is usually a relationship that is of the other person, the male has initiated it. Like someone asks you out or someone requires your presence in a relationship and you simply don't have a way of saying no. That is the way that women have been treated for a very long amount of time. And this generation must be the last generation that ever experiences that in any culture in this world. So I'm here in the United States and our culture here is very different than, let's say, someplace like Cambodia or the Middle East or even sub-Saharan Africa. There are places where women are profoundly disempowered and are not able to make these types of choices. And, you know, the abuse of women, even beyond satanic ritual abuse, happens pretty much in every culture. And it means that when that happens to a woman, there's supposed to be a filter in front of your vagina that keeps out unwanted partners. It keeps out males that don't have good characteristics. And there are plenty of males that don't have good characteristics. None of them are here in my class, but we're talking about males who are insecure, who would take something that's not theirs because they feel like they can't earn it fairly, males who can't compete. You understand? So in male social dynamics, competition is a huge thing. Who's got bigger muscles? Who can throw a rock further or a baseball further? Who's the biggest? Who's the strongest? Am I bigger than you? Am I stronger than you? And the whole entire pecking order that comes from that. And that competition and ability to compete then translates to the competition and being able to compete for females and for female attractiveness. But in order to be sensed attractive by the females are not always like, you know, can you lift a heavy rock or can you throw a baseball very far? Sometimes they're like, that's moderately important, but you know what else is important? Are you kind to me? Will you be kind to my offspring? Will you share your food with me, or will you take all the food for yourself and leave none for me? Will me and my baby starve? Got it? So there are males who often can't compete And then what they do is force themselves upon a female or find a way to gain access to a female who never would have said yes otherwise. Maybe she couldn't say no because she was abused in childhood, or maybe she is culturally prohibited from saying no. This is all very, very dark, distressing stuff, even though it is taken as culturally normative in your time and place. You guys can ask me questions if you want to in the chat. I feel like I'm so far out on a limb here. I'm saying all the absolutely wrong things that humans should never say in accurate description of your society right now, but in the effort to be able to call out these things so that they change. How in the world does this relate to flying rainbow lasagna? Okay, so I did this curriculum more than 10 years ago, and I did the advanced stuff based a lot on people asking me questions. And a lot of people ask me questions about sexuality that I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to make this a part of the curriculum. But it's always, I think, one of the hardest things for me to be able to speak about, to honor the authenticity of what I'm trying to say from an energetic level and from the viewpoint of a cultural outsider. And meanwhile, recognizing that I'm probably hugely insulting to people of various different religions, to people of various different self-identities of what is who they're attracted to and who they're not attracted to. And I'm sure I'm hurting males' feelings a lot. I'm probably hurting females' feelings a lot. To questions about abortion, this is actually a huge quagmire and very, very difficult to talk about. We can also have a conversation all about gay and homosexuality. Is being gay always a representation of your true soul state, or is being gay sometimes an outgrowth of being violated in childhood or some other form of transgression against a person that then becomes the expression of that trauma in adulthood? This is a big conversation to have also. Can you be healthy gay, or is gay always from some form of violation or dysfunction? Or is it from the convenience of being on a pirate ship, yarg matey, with no females around? These are deep questions to ask. Michelangelo, thank you for being here, says, hi, Master Aurora. Just got the melatonin patches in. Is it okay to put them on a few hours during the day? And should I use them daily? Big yes. So I don't feel tired when I put on topical melatonin. I feel totally energized and great. You will have to figure out what your metabolism is like. Because I can take CBD in the morning and I feel energized and ready to go in my day. Some people take CBD and it makes them feel tired or tranquilized. So you have to figure out how it makes you feel. But I would say that the melatonin patches are super to put on during the day. And those ones are a time release. They're 24 hours. So, whatever, if you put them on at 6 p.m. At night, you should leave it on for the whole entire day, because it will be slowly soaking into your body through the whole entire time. But I would say put it on whatever part of your body needs the most help. If you have areas of muscular weakness or frailty, or areas that need particular levels of healing, put it directly on those areas, because the melatonin topically doesn't really migrate that far from where you place it. It kind of stays close to where you place it. So if you put it on your shoulder, it would not necessarily reach your liver. If you want help with your liver, slap that thing on your liver, put it right on top of there. And then also the adhesive on those patches might be irritative to your skin. So don't always put it in the same place. If you're putting put it here one day, then put it here the next day, then put it here the next day, put it here the next day, kind of move it around your body. Joyce says, no hurt feelings here. I love and appreciate you. Hugs to Cheeky. Thank you. Thank you for that. I need a little bit of encouragement to know that I'm not just totally alienating everyone that I'm talking to here by saying all of these things. I hope that I'm giving you the clarity of my viewpoint and my authenticity, really without blame. Although I'm definitely telling you clear levels of right and wrong, I'm trying to tell you this in terms of mentorship, of how you should be moving forward. Even adults sometimes require mentorship, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm hoping that I can give you a viewpoint into how to shift your own relationships, how to look at your own bodies and body processes differently, and how to restructure your whole entire society. Because we're moving into a world that people call new earth, but we can just think about it as the next updated chapter, and what things look like in ascension, and how do we do commodities. How do we do our economy? Whatever you do, you must structure it so that it is supportive for the next generation. What has happened up until this point has been people expressing their sexuality and having babies and having the next generation in spite of a huge burden of negativity that has been placed in front of you. Like, it's very difficult to have a healthy, functional relationship between males and females. It's very difficult for females to be empowered and to have the children that they want. It's very difficult for parents to be empowered as parents. So there are some wonderful families where people are like not appreciating the government schools or the government agenda of subcutaneous pollution for their offspring. And so they're going for homeschooling and they're developing their own curriculum and they're developing their own small community schools. All of that I love. I love community building. I love the self-sufficiency. I love the non-compromising of personal values in order to integrate into the world, especially when the world is so clearly dysfunctional, and especially when the existing power structure is so clearly anti-human. You recognize your food supply is anti-human, your government is anti-human, and all these sexual mores and traditions are anti-human. They're really not made by you and for you. But that humans have been largely manipulated. If you think about things like the myth of Cupid, Cupid draws the arrow and then shoots it at particular people, shoots them in the butt. And then they're like, hearts come out of their eyes. And they're like, I'm infatuated with you. Let's make a baby together. That is the story of manipulation by otherworldly creatures of human dynamics that should be sacred. So you recognize it's in your myths. You should not be manipulated in any way. Who you fall in love with should be sacred. Who you love and how you love them should be sacred. I'm going to say that, yes, sometimes there are same-sex pairings, and that's a very sacred, bonding of two people that have the same gender. I also think that sometimes people turn away from the opposite gender because they're like, too dysfunctional. Can't even deal with you. I'm going to choose someone who feels more like me and where I have an easier communication style and just to be able to find their intimacy and their pair bonding through the same gender. I think that sometimes it is because the world is so dysfunctional that people don't know how to relate in a healthy way to the people of the opposite or complementary gender. Yeah, you got it, Michelangelo. Charlie B, thank you for being here. Says agree that we need mentorship. Our society is traumatized and dysfunctional, and unfortunately, some people may not be able to hear the message because they are already in such constant pain and are defensive. Good point, Charlie B. But the message must be spoken, or we have no chance to hear it. Thank you for giving me that permission to speak and to share these things and to say these things. Again, there have been some years when I've been just like, I don't even think I have the wherewithal. This is me, shifty out. Like, I don't even think that I could talk about these things. It's too hard. I'll just gloss over that. Leave it in the homeworks. People will find it on their own. But I'm feeling bold today. And so I decided to actually give this presentation. I'm certainly open to more questions or comments if any people want to know about this. What is the relationship between this and flying rainbow lasagna? Like, why am I talking about this beyond just public service of people asking me questions about sexuality? Your sexual pathways, or the pathways that people often associate with sexual satisfaction, are absolutely connected to the energy pathways that allow you to do flying rainbow lasagna. When you do flying rainbow lasagna, you go into a state of bliss. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the same as an explosive orgasm, but it's the same levels of co-creation. When it's just like when you are in the midst of making a beautiful painting or expressing yourself in music and you're really in the groove, or really in your moments of perfect athletic artistry or dance. The flying rainbow lasagna is an expression of that beautiful artistry. It's creative energy. Sexuality is the biological expression of creative energy. Instead of making painting or a sculpture, as you see here in my studio, you are making new life. You are making human beings. And it's a very sacred and positive thing to do. I knew in coming here as Aurora that my job and my pathway or my divine purpose was not just to make one baby or one offspring. I knew that my job was not to just pass on my DNA and my lasagna potentials to one person, but instead is to teach and exemplify and mentor as many of you as I can. And that means I do consider you in many ways like my children, my offspring, or having a family positive association. I feel very protective and very parental over you guys. But what I do is lateral gene transfer. And that's where I'm here dancing like a lasagna. And it has an impact on everyone who's alive. People who are 5 years old, people who are 1,000 years old, and plants and animals. All right. Everybody is getting lasagnified. It's very, very different than the nuclear family. If I was only sharing energy with one male partner, and if I only had a baby or a couple of babies, and then I said, these are the people that I'm lasagnifying, these are the people that I'm genetically uplifting. I'm only responsible for this little, tiny nucleus of the human social world. I'm like, no, I'm really here to have an impact on the entirety of human society. So I knew that from the very early time coming in here. But then, like I'm telling you, being in a human female body and the way that you're objectified and all these things, a lot of people tried to project things upon me. A lot of people tried to initiate relationships with me. A lot of people didn't comprehend if I was not receptive to their attempt to initiate relationships with me. But I was very, very clear about that was not my path. And also, I want you to know that in this world, because this world is so sexually dysfunctional, you can be a very healthy person. Does not mean that you are sexually damaged and reject sexual relationships in this world. In fact, that can be in many ways a healthy and positive thing to do. It's like if you're saying, like, I'm really only interested in eating, health food. And in this world, all I'm really seeing is junk food and cookies. So I'm not going to eat that stuff because it's really not what I'm interested in. And again, I'm happy that I have that one family that I'm friends with, that I can see the evidence of non-dysfunctional, healthy family life that's here. It is possible, just very rare. And that people could do that more. I might be more interested in that level of community building, because family is really about community building. But I really see my life as being shaped differently than most other people's lives, because sometimes people have wondered about whether I should have a husband, whether I should have a partner, who that should be, what that would look like, and whether I should make baby lasagnas. And the answer is that is not my path and not what I'm supposed to be doing. Although I'm a healthy person and my sexuality is healthy and intact, I am not here looking for partnership and not here intending to do procreation. Although I will tell you, I am totally supportive of families and of parents and of women and of everybody who's trying to do it right, from everything from consciously conceiving their child to having a healthy pregnancy and being, fit and active during a pregnancy, to having what people are calling a natural birth, where you're very supported by your community and not feeling like industrialized or a medical procedure is happening, and where you're able to bond with your baby when it comes out and be able to leave the placenta attached if you want to, and then be able to do family co-sleeping and be able to do breastfeeding for as long as you need to or want to, and to be able to be free to make your own choices as a family and not have the government or medical interventions making choices for you. Like, this is everything that I am supportive of, including how you educate and socialize your children too. I am totally protective and supportive of you. But what I also feel like is like I have already done a lot of the lessons of what it is to be embodied in individuality. And what you guys do when you find your partners and you make happy families and happy babies, you're learning soul lessons that you need to learn that are about accommodation. Like, I feel like this. Well, I feel like this. Well, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. And we're a family. And we're committed to one another. You learn a lot from doing that. And you learn a lot from being a parent, because you're like wanting to take care of your child. But sometimes your child is like, no, mom, like I do it my own way. They might be like 5 years old, but they're still going to want to do it their own way. And I've done babysitting and nanny work where I've worked with children a lot. And I feel like I've been able to give good support and, care to children, but always recognizing like, I'm not your mommy. That's your mommy. And you want to stay bonded to your mommy. I am your babysitter and I give you, a different level of care. So I feel like that in terms of human sexuality. I feel like I am here trying to teach you guys like what even is the right hole for you to use. And what is the right way to be in partnership respectfully? And what is the right way to be able to conceive of children? And how do you build community and raise your children safely and positively? But I don't feel like that's at the level of lessons that I need to learn, because I feel like I've already learned and mastered a lot of those lessons. So these are the reasons why, I am who I am in the world and why I approach things the way that I do. And I hope that you can comprehend and celebrate that's where I am on my journey, but also know that I am totally supportive of you guys. I want you guys to find great partners, and I want you to have healthy sexual relationships. I want you to have healthy relationships in your body, even like with food and with exercise. I want you to have non-dysfunctional, I want you to have a healthy relationship with food. And because food is also a part of sexuality. Food feeds your reproductive organs. Like you have to have, like I was talking to you about, like ballerinas, gymnasts, and other female athletes that are asked to have limited caloric intake so that their bodies are super small and slender, and then sometimes they lose their reproductive energy. Food gives you your period. This is why you need to eat chocolate when you are menstruating. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But having a healthy relationship with food is essential for being able to be healthy in your reproductive organs and your relationship with the opposite sex. And then if you guys want to go into like really difficult, uncharted territory, just like ask me about the transgender stuff and ask me about, people's commitments to their appearance and all those things. Like I could talk for 3 more hours on this. I will insult and alienate everyone. No, actually I won't. And I'll get to your question, Elmer. I worked recently for someone who is a person in the music industry, and they're going from male to female transgender. And I feel like I've been able to be very positive and very encouraging of them, even if I'm not totally in alignment with all the things that they're choosing to do to their body. But you know what? They are definitely in adulthood. And I don't agree that any of these puberty blockers should be used on like tiny children, because they kind of don't know who they are yet. But for people that are, whatever, their 50s, 60s, or whatever, older years, and they're, making this choice or going down this road, I'm like, yes, of course, like you're definitely old enough to know who you are and to want to be able to explore what that feels like. But being a woman is more than just your appearance. It's very much about reproductive and maternal feelings. Okay, Elmer says, what the ideal way to deal with sexual awakenings among young people? Growing curiosity and sexuality. I find it traumatizing in Catholic society, and it's like a feared topic covered with lies. Very truthful. So, I'll just be with you there. The Catholic Church and much of indoctrinated Christian society is Antichrist. It's the opposite of real Christ. And the blame, shame, and guilt that is associated with even having private body parts is not healthy or helping anyone. I have in my notes, you guys should read my notes, the Spanish Inquisition and that time of darkness in Northern Europe, they taught that it was wrong and evil even to have private body parts, and you should never touch them. Just never touch or look at the private parts. And they also taught that when you are in wintertime, they would have like these like woolen underwears, to wear underneath their clothing. You should be sewn into your undergarments, and that's it for the winter. Like you never take off your long underwear, never bathe, never touch yourself, never look at yourself. That level of depersonalization, dehumanization, and disassociation from the body is hugely wrong, very uncomfortable, and not in alignment with life as a gift, and our bodies as a gift from God, and our sensual pleasures as a gift from God. But so I recognize like that's definitely a cultural hang up and something that's not healthy in both Catholicism and even just like the regular Christian community. And the stuff that goes back to the ancient Bible and the Handmaid's Tale, or ways of commodifying and objectifying women's bodies. And we can also talk about Islam and the very many out of balance aspects of that culture that is very misogynistic and blames women for the erroneous arousal of men. This is where the burqa comes from. So in a more positive sense, talking about sexual awakenings with young people, like I've had people that share these my original videos from 10 years ago with their children when they're at the age they start asking questions because their body starts to develop and they need to know about these things. So if you guys check out my original whiteboards from 10 years ago, I draw all the pictures with males and females with all of their chakras, and I teach about how this is how we should teach young people. You have these chakras on your body, and like, let's say this is your red chakra down here. You have to line up your chakras with your partner. In positive sense, and this is in my notes, that's what partner dance is all about. When you do something like a waltz with someone else, you are face to face and torso to torso. Your chakras are lining up with them. You are in your energy field, they're in their energy field, and you begin to move with them and feel what it feels like to move with them. It is not sexualized, but it is sensual. And you get a sense of, what do they smell like? What does their energy feel like? How do they hold you? Do they hold you in a gentle way? Do they hold you in a strong way? Do you like the way they hold you? Do you like the way it feels? There was a time when women and men could not have unchaperoned time together before marriage to be able to learn about whether they were attracted to one another. So they would go to these dances and dance with one another and be like, what does that feel like? But women had to wait to be asked to dance. What you had to do was kind of like flutter your eyelashes and be like, I hope someone will come and dance with me. And then what if it's someone who you don't like? And you're like, no, I really don't like that guy, but he wants to dance with me. And be like, okay, like, let's do this. You had to kind of like selectively drop your handkerchief in front of the guy that you really liked. Like, come on, like, hope you'll ask me to dance. And now, of course, we live in a different time when you should be able to approach a male that you're interested in and say, I am attracted to you. Would you like to get to know each other? And of course, I also had to learn, this is more Aurora stories. When I first came here as Aurora, I had no idea about how people communicate and also about indirect language and their mating rituals. And I thought if a person asks you out to lunch, they were literally offering you food. And I'm like, yes, like, I would like calories. That sounds great. But I didn't understand that they were asking for more than calories. They were asking for an energy exchange, wherein they will buy you lunch and you will consider becoming their sex partner. And I was like, oh, I do not want to be your sex partner, but I would like tacos. So then I had to learn, like, you can't do that. And everybody here is not honest, and sometimes people even lie. So it's high time for a very much needed recalibration in communication with people, but also people would be like not comprehending why I am so literal. And to them, it is normal and it is second nature. Like, because most people give nonverbal signals, even beyond asking someone out to lunch, that have to do with body postures and different ways of speaking or looking at someone beyond what their words say in order to communicate whether they are attracted to the other person. And I didn't pick up on any of those cues at all because I'm like, la, 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 like I have no idea what any of this means. I just have my body and I just go through the world. And so even this is a slight criticism of this world, like even being in a female form and just having good posture, that people would be like, oh, look at you, like you are sticking out your chest. You are clearly looking for a mate. And I'm like, no, I have good posture. I am not looking for a mate. I think clearly I can see your boobs. And that means you're looking for a mate. I'm like, no, I have a body and I'm not looking for a mate. So people in this world really need to be completely expunged of all of their expectations of how to communicate with the opposite sex, create much clearer boundaries, much clearer levels of communication, and make it possible for women to simply be in the world without being presumed to be sexually demonstrative. There was a time when if you wore what we now know as yoga pants, someone would say, you're wearing tight pants. You're being sexually demonstrative. So if you look at that movie Grease with what's her name, Olivia Newton-John, and in the end, she's wearing yoga pants and she's become a bad girl, and you can see her butt, and now she's going to be sexually voluptuous. And I'm like, no, like I'm wearing yoga pants because I'm about to exercise. I am not here to be sexually voluptuous. People cannot comprehend that. So it's essential to have this conversation, Elmer. So what I would like, I mean, this recording here is just totally not, I'm off balance. You can even tell it was off balance, even trying to say that. This video would not be the best way to be able to introduce young people to what the concept of healthy sexuality is. And I would also not want them to have to know about what is satanic ritual abuse, even while we're having the conversation about healthy sexuality. I would like to have a completely different video to give to them. That's why I have healthy sexuality is part one of my 10 years ago videos. And then unhealthy stuff is part two. Just show them part one. Don't get into part two, and teach them all about how what you're supposed to be able to do is dance with your partner in a positive, non-sexual situation and get a feel for what their body is like, and get a feel for whether they would touch you respectfully. And then also to be able to go slowly into levels of commitment, not to dive right in like with sexuality as the very first initial contact, that you should first see if there is rapport and alignment on all of the other levels, including the heart, which is love and authenticity. Because if you're really going to make a commitment and be in a relationship with someone, you have to have the heart connection, and you have to be able to be authentic. And being authentic is being able to like be who you truly are and say the things that you need to truly say. So I don't find a lot of TV and books and movies like relatable or fun for me to watch, because I'm like, they just need to be more authentic. Like Lanley once said, like we should do a whole, she'd think it would be funny if I did a whole series of like watching, like reaction videos, like watching Seinfeld or something like that with other people. And the whole entire show, I'd be like this whole entire miscommunication could be fixed up. Like this whole entire comedic situation would be changed if they could just communicate authentically with each other. But of course, what made it funny and relatable was that they can't communicate directly and they can't be authentic. And everybody who's watching in the audience is like, it's funny because it's true. I can't communicate or be authentic either. And then I'm here, Mia, and I'm like, I communicate and I'm authentic. Like, I don't understand this show. Like, why do you guys even have this show? So it would be very funny for me to go through a lot of human books and movies and other things like that and be able to say, like, yeah, this part would all just be completely wiped away if you were just able to say what is truly in your heart. But most people don't do that. So I don't know, Elmer, people need to be acculturated at a young age of what is respectful sexuality, but also it's an outgrowth of and directly related to other levels of self-respect, authenticity, communication, and boundaries, all of which is an outfit that applies to your whole entire life going forward. And also, if you are in this world that is, a male and female world. Like we don't live mostly separated by genders, like, the traditional Jewish world. Like there's the world of men and the world of women, and these two things don't meet. And also women were largely diminished from educational opportunities to express themselves or be community members. There's a lot of that in a segregated society, but in an integrated society, you have to be able to navigate the tangled morass of sexual signals, even to just be able to have a professional world. And that is what I learned, although I was not participating in your strange, interwoven, and out of balance sexual dynamics, just in order for me to work in the workplace or promote my artwork as a visual artist, and also, of course, as a musician. I had to learn about all of these different signals because I wanted to be able to share really the deepest secrets of cosmic knowledge that I contain, but people were busy looking at my boobies. And then I had to learn, do I have to wear a different shirt? How much can I wear a shirt that's like this? Can I wear a shirt that's like this? Do I have to wear a shirt that's like this? Do I have to wear a burqa? Like I actually had a fashion identity crisis where I was like, what do I need to wear? And I joked with people at the retreat. At one point, I actually got an outfit that I called my quote unquote, take me seriously outfit. I was like, what do you wear for people to take you seriously in the world? So I got like this little black jacket and these little very uncomfortable pairs of high heels, like little heels. But I was like, they're going to take me seriously. They still didn't take me seriously. So I was like, okay, I'm going back to wearing the rainbow clothes that I want to wear. But also, just like in some cultures, they would consider me to be hugely sexually demonstrative because I'm showing my arms. And it's like, to me, that is normal. I have arms and there they are. They're right on the ends of my shoulders. And some people are like, no, you can't wear that at all. You're showing way too much of your arms. I'm like, my arms are arms. Like, I can't imagine, like, well, how can you show too much of your arms? And you understand, to me, it is a strange, bizarre abstraction. To humans, they're deeply wedded to the limitations that are placed on them from their grandfathers, ancestors, and even deeper stuff. And when you start to change as a flying rainbow lasagna, all that stuff bubbles up. So when I start to dance as a flying rainbow lasagna, and let's hug cheeky, not that much these days, but especially when I first started to dance and transform my DNA, a lot of ancestral crapola would come up and would say, "You're not allowed to like dance with your legs in a split. Like that's so unladylike. Like, your ancestors are shaking their fingers at you." And they were all like, whatever, disempowered Jewish people from a tiny village. It's called the shtetl. That's from Eastern Europe. Like that's just like women were not athletic. Women were not dancers. Women had 12 babies and died toothless. They were not allowed to dance the way that I dance. And when I do this, I feel the judgment of the ancestors. And I'm like, give me something, ancestors can go shove it up an excretory hole. Sorry, that's not right to say. But you know what I mean? I'm like, jump off a bridge because those judgments do not apply. They are not healthy. They were never valid. They were not appropriate to the women of that time. And they're definitely not appropriate to me as a woman of this time. But you have to also know that there are some places in the world right now where women are not allowed to go to a gym and exercise. Males, weightlifting, yes. Females, weightlifting, no. And definitely not wearing those tight yoga pants. Like, what are you? A prostitute lifting 500 pounds? You're not allowed to do this. You understand? You can hear the voices, and the voices are largely males. It's largely males who cannot imagine that a woman would want to be athletic and not be sexually objectified or demonstrative in an athletic situation. And then we get to the Olympics of this time and place, where sometimes women are like, I am busy being an athlete and I'm wearing my athletic costume in order to move effectively as an athlete. And some males are watching the spectacle and they're like, I am watching for sexual pleasure, not to celebrate the athletic achievements of what a female can do in her body. That's a real problem. Because if someone's a pole dancer or they're pressing the privates up against the pane of glass in a gross bar, then they're like, okay, they're doing this for your pleasure. But if someone literally trained their whole entire life to be able to do the high jump, you know what I mean, of track and field, like they're not there so that you can look at their ass. Like they're there to win a medal and you should level up. Like males have to level up on that level. But I don't want males in this class in my current, class over here. I don't want you guys to feel like I'm talking to you about this because I'm sure that you're on a different level. But some guys, they really need to level up and know that these skimpy athletic outfits are really not there for your sexual gratification. And it's wrong to think so. It's wrong to think that we are there. So, speaking as for women and as a woman here, I am not here for the sexual gratification of males. I am here to have a body. I am here to be a dancer. I am here to be an athlete. But I'm not here for someone else to look at me and then to get their own pleasant sexual arousal from. Because you know what? That's a form of taking of energy. And I am not giving that energy to those people. And it's hugely presumptive to think that I am. Just walking down the street, some males think that I am here to give them that energy. I'm not here to give you that energy. So I observe strict energetic boundaries in terms of my sexual energy, and I do not give energy to those males. And definitely they treat me differently than other women, and definitely sometimes they are hostile to me as a result, because they're used to the type of interaction where they receive sexual energy and the women are, flirty in a certain way. And it's the traditional dynamics of how people interact. And I don't do any of those traditional dynamics, nor do I do those traditional dynamics in the workplace when I have worked in different retail stores, private businesses, and also worked as an assistant, worked in offices. I have never been selling my sexuality in order to be a part of a workspace. But some people consider flirtations to be a natural part of the workspace, and that's just normal, that bosses might overly hug you or touch your shoulder or linger in some way. And I would never do that. I would be like, no, I'm here to help you with I'm here to help you with your emails. I'm not here for you to touch me. I know I'm wearing a shirt with no sleeves. I am not here for you to touch me. Like this is me. I have a lot of funny Aurora stories. Melly says, this all makes me think about how there's a lack of reverence for life and organic creation. Very apt, very truthful. I was horrified when I saw a news story the other day about a woman that started a business that puts a drop box in local fire departments for women to give up their babies. It's just so sad on every level. The trauma to that baby is unfathomable. I really agree, Melly. And it is a sad world that we live in when that is considered to be a socially positive solution for a woman who might feel so disempowered that they cannot be in motherhood and in parenthood and they don't know what to do with their baby. Like there's no family members to support, there's no friends to support, there is no husband to call upon, there is no one to take care of that baby except them. And maybe they are in financial distress, or maybe they're in substance abuse, or whatever is going on with them. They feel like they cannot be a parent to their child, and they abdicate. They abdicate motherhood and just put it into a box for someone else to take care of. And I would like to think that those babies are all very well cared for. However, I'm very aware that the foster system is sometimes a pipeline to satanic abuse. So I would like to think like, don't worry, like there's nice firemen and nurses and everybody takes really good care of that baby and they find it a great new home. That's what I would like to think. But the uncomfortable truth is that there's a huge industry of both child protective services in the United States, that's what it's called, CPS, and the foster system, foster care system, where there's a lot of violation, a lot of abuse, both physical, verbal, mental, emotional, chemical, meaning that they drug these children sometimes with all sorts of psychotropic drugs, and sexual. And that it's a money-making thing that the government is making money off of it, and the people who are foster parents are making money off of it. And if you're a foster parent, you're watching this and you're like, I'm one of the good ones, then thank you for being one of the good ones. But you also recognize that the system is incredibly corrupt, because what can happen is you can be a good parent who someone else falsely accuses. Your tiny child can be taken from you by CPS and put into fosterage into the hands of people who are only profit motivated, who violate the child or sell it for ritual abuse. And sometimes children have even been killed. And that this is, I know I'm being incredibly inflammatory in the things that I'm talking about, but sometimes children have killed, or they've been vaccinated against their parents' wishes, and bad things have happened to them. And then they're returned back to their family of origin, not as the same child. That's also a huge problem. And I'll say also surrogacy is another huge problem, because you have women who are so financially disempowered that they will allow themselves to be paid, or agree to be paid, between $25,000 and $60,000 to be able to have implanted pregnancy, like an in vitro fertilization pregnancy, carry it to term and give birth to the baby for someone who is wealthy but infertile. The stars of Hollywood and some of the rich ruling families do stuff like this. And that's not healthy, to sell your body in that way, even though some women who are surrogates are so happy to do it. And they're like, I'm helping someone else who can't have a baby and I'm getting paid for it. And it's great. I am just, this is what you said, lack of reverence for life and organic creation. Let's just say, instead of I'm judging women who are surrogates, shouldn't have to be at that level to be able to make $65,000 that you're selling access to your womb. And also, let us revivify the reverence for life and organic creation. If people are facing infertility, infertility is a huge issue right now. You have to look at why. Infertility is not just because of the after effects of hormonal birth control. It's also because of estrogen mimickers in your environment. Yes, that's stuff that's in plastics and beauty care products and all sorts of things that mimic estrogen that go into men, and that they're not as fertile as they should be, and all sorts of things that are diminishing human fertility. I have friends that were a young couple like 20 years ago that couldn't get pregnant because they were in New York effing city. And the energy field there is terrible. They had to get out of the city on like a getaway and go to the Catskills and get a little cabin. And then they were able to conceive a child getting out of the city. Like, there is something wrong with the electromagnetic fields and lack of perfect sacred geometry and symmetry that's in cities that makes people not able to be fertile. And then subcutaneous pollutions. That is literally a depopulation agenda stuff that has been put into your world in order to sterilize people. The HPV vaccine, this is not even a recent one. This is an older one from at least the past 15 years. Led to huge amounts of infertility in the very young women that it was supposed to protect from cervical cancer. It's terrible, terrible stuff that is really an anti-life agenda. So let's now speak in positives. Let's create an agenda that is celebratory of life, that celebrates and sustains women's natural fertility cycles, that celebrates and sustains male fertility and things that are also male virility. So taking out the estrogen mimickers from food and body care products so that males are actually virile, and to have the conversations and socializations about self-advocacy and for boundaries in relationships so that people can have the partners that they choose to have, and then people to have effective birth control. It should be non-hormonal, because I'm sorry, hormonal birth control, it's really disruptive to your body. It's not positive, and also it gets into the water systems and it affects the entire waterways. But you know something? Women have been limiting their pregnancies without hormonal industrialized birth control for like thousands of years. And there's actually a lot of wonderful ancient wisdom and techniques about how to only have the number of babies that you want to have, and that you can definitely do it without a lot of chemicals that are openly carcinogenic. That just really recognizing that. And also sometimes hormonal birth control is given to very young women by doctors that are just like, oh, we will regulate your period. Here's hormonal birth control. Like this is given out like candy to girls who are 12 years old because they're having non-regular periods, when you can regulate your daughter's period with all sorts of dietary changes, herbs, and other things that are a lot healthier for the long term for her. So much stuff, such a big conversation here, away from industrialized medicine, quote unquote, away from chemicals, away from the impurity of the world that we're in, and back towards the natural purity of who you are. And I really think that if you lived in an environment that was much purer in terms of chemistry of what you're being exposed to, with natural sunlight, pure natural sunlight, and fewer frequency disruptors like, EMFs, Bluetooth, and 5G, you would have a completely different expression of your sexuality, sensuality, and who you choose in partnership. Because there's, I think, a lot of gender confusion and gender fluidity that's going on right now that is a direct result of the impurities in the environment. Yes, there is an ongoing attack on the family and on the nuclear family, because you know why? Mothers will do anything for their children, and well-bonded partners will do anything for their partners. Like when there is like real oxytocin, love, bonding, and you've got babies together, mama bear, papa bear will do anything to protect baby bear. And the government does not like that. They're like, no, we want to take baby bear and, whatever, reacculturate it and turn it into something that favors our regime. And mama bear and papa bear are like, you will have to go through me first before I will allow that. And I love that about humanity, and I celebrate that in you. And I want you to create incredibly powerful families and communities, that you protect your babies and you protect one another, and that you do caring of each other's children also, so that you are empowered and your anti-life, anti-human government is disempowered. And what are some of the other supportive of life and celebratory of life things that we would like to have? Pretty much redefining what parenthood is and how parenthood commodification and commerce goes on, because it was a very unhealthy thing for people. So pre-industrialization, people worked on the farm, had your babies grew up and learned how to work on the farm with you. Everybody lived together and worked on the farm. When the industrialized revolution happened, Papa went off to the factory, and then you didn't have the farm at a certain point. Everybody moved into cities, and then nobody worked on the farm. Everybody worked in the factories. The family farm was not passed down from generation to generation. And then also people went away to education in order to learn how to work in factories. And this was intentional. So what you want to do is completely reconstruct what you're supposed to be doing, which is having land where you live, either having a farm or working together on communal projects, and you might have extended family that lives all around with you, and your children are raised and acculturated by you, and they might be educated by you, or they might be educated by, you know, small local schools, but that government education was supposed to be like going to set you free and make you equals in the world. And really, Henry Ford created the educational system of this country just to make good factory workers. He's like, I'm going to need auto workers who can make my cars. You create these auto workers with your educational system. So the educational system, people have, it's failed them, and you've learned that it really does not serve you and life at all. It really serves an industrialized purpose. And now there's all these different alternatives, both homeschooling and unschooling, which are various different ways for children to create their own age-appropriate curriculum based upon their own interests, or parents are actually supportive of that. I know it's a lot for parents to both raise and educate their own children. You can do a lot with homeschooling in, small communities, as opposed to government indoctrination centers that are anti-life, that are unhealthy. Anybody else have any other good suggestions on what is pro-life? Like, we want to do things that are like supportive of your natural hormonal state, supportive of the natural pregnancy and birth process, and also of the first years of early development for both mama and papa to be there, and to be able to do what they need to do. That, I mean, of course, that also means that fathers should not have to be away from their children for 6 months at a time and then come back and be like, hi, like, I'm a stranger. You know, that was normal in other times and places, but not to have that type of distant, uninvolved father that was from previous generations, but to respect the contributions that fathers make now. Again, I'm open to the chat for any other questions or comments. I hope that you haven't cringed too much throughout my presentation here. I hope that your neck isn't like, I've cringed so much, like I'm permanently in this direction. I hope that I have been medically appropriate, but also talked about very serious things here that have given food for thought for people to change. And then, yeah, it's my very, very great desire for humans to just completely recalibrate. I haven't even gotten into things that are about human sexuality, appearance, plastic surgery, and cultural conventions of what is beauty. All of those things relate very much to sexuality and to attractiveness. And I hope that it comes across. I'm celebratory of people, but I'm also protective of you, because a lot of the things that people are doing to supposedly look beautiful are very good for your body. All right. And I want you to look and feel beautiful, but I want you to do things that are good for your body. So, I love women. I love you, whether you've had breast implants or not, but please recognize that a lot of women have had breast implants to feel more attractive, and then got a lot of health issues and had to have them, it's called explanted, had them taken out. And I don't want people to have to go through this whole type of medical journey to be able to come to levels of acceptance and celebration of their body, changing and redefining what we consider to be beautiful, healthy, and voluptuous and sexy. I haven't even said anything about pornography. Pornography should not be in existence. It is a corrosive aspect of your world that is dark magic. And even when a person might be a good person who's trying to be like family centered, when they are engaging with or marinating in pornography, they bring that into the sexual relationship with their committed partner, and that destabilizes the emotional realm. And then people often don't even know how to have a real relationship without the self-conscious factor of wondering what they look like in moments of lovemaking that is based entirely upon this incredibly unhealthy and demonic industry that is known as the pornography industry. It kills relationships. It kills authenticity. It kills real care and real celebration of the intimacy of another person and their form, and is incredibly inherently unhealthy. Melly says, no cringing here. Thank you for this excellent non-censor TED Talk. Thank you. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, everyone. Good job. Okay. And then we all have to kind of shake it off, and we're going to go for a nice, good walk with Cheeky, and have a beautiful evening and have plenty of exercise. And I'm sure that I've given food for thought to everybody here. I also hope that it comes across who I am and what I am. I'm really trying to be celebratory and uplifting to people in this world that are feeling so assaulted, and they're told that you're bad and wrong on almost every level and diminished. And so in my mentorship of humanity, I want you to be like, no, like you're beautiful and good and fantastic, but all of this stuff has to go. Like you're great and you're wonderful, but all this is not great and wonderful. And you know what? A lot of it got grandfathered in. A lot of it didn't even come from you. A lot of it came from previous generations, ancestral trauma, and cultural and social and economic overlays. It's time to clean house. It's time to go through in a very selective way and say, what are the things that serve? What are the things that do not serve? And sexuality is literally red chakra, which is the root chakra. It's the basis of life. And when you're out of balance on that basis foundation, then everything else is out of balance. So getting that into balance is crucial for the healing and rectification of your whole entire world. And that does relate to Flying Rainbow Lasagna, which is all about a dance of rectification and creating a paradise state in this world. It will be almost unrecognizable to those of you that come out of this, extremely flawed times. And you might tell some funny stories to people in the future and be like, oh, way back in the very dysfunctional times, people used to do this and that, and they'll laugh, hopefully, because you have evolved so far past those silly ways of doing things. But yeah, just to completely, you're going to clean house and completely reconstruct and redefine what it is to be human, including what is sexuality and what is healthy sexuality and what is it to, how do you create relationships and family in this world, all right? And humans are already doing very well. I've noticed a lot of positive changes in the past 20 years that I've been here, but still a lot of room for improvement. And Elmer says, thank you so much, Professor. You're very, very welcome. At the request of an encouragement of some people in my wonderful retreat, they said I need to drop the air quotes. So now I am self-described truly Professor Aurora. And also I will be doing some more Ask Me Anythings or Telling Aurora Stories. I'll do another one of those. And also I'm going to start a new project, which is talking about some of the work that I do in groups that is part of my planetary protection mission. I'm a warrior also, and I fight against evil, and I fight for the sovereignty of this world and for the ability to rectify ourselves in time. And I'm connected to beautiful groups of other people who are psychic warriors of the highest integrity. I will be doing some more videos where I share about those events and those missions, because I talked about them at the retreat, and people who were there found it to be so uplifting and so heartening. They're like, we need to know about this. Other people need to know about these, because sometimes we have victories and you might not even know what has happened. I haven't been necessarily creating a whole video series about it. I think I was most concerned about the appearance of self-aggrandizement or some level of narcissism. But because of the positive reports of my sharing, I'm like, okay, this would be a whole new video series. So I'll do some probably, kind of short explanatory videos whenever appropriate of things that I can share, details that I can share, nothing that is requiring confidentiality or any ongoing missions, but things that have already been completed. So any other questions, comments, or anything else that someone would like to say? And, I do always open my YouTube comments to people's questionings or whatever they would like to express. I hope that people will be able to express themselves and, be respectful and share their views on all the things that I talked about here. I hope I'll get a huge amount of celebration and support of people that are like, we always knew it was screwed up around here. Thank you for articulating these things so that we can actually change. So let's envision that too. So people will not feel diminished or insulted or assaulted by what I said, but will instead find agreement and validation and really want to use this as the springboard for a conversation of completely how to transform the world into a much, much better state. Okay? All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Pedro says, love the lasagna. Thank you. Gracias. Thank you, Pedro. All right. Signing off for right now, everyone. Thank you so much. Go take Cheeky for a walk. Cheeky's a good dog. She knows exactly what I'm saying. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Thank you.